Today I'm speaking with Dave Baldwin, aka Dr. Dave. For those of you that know Dave, I'm sure you'll agree that his personality is infectious, and he's one of those larger-than-life characters that never seems to slow down. Dig a little deeper though, and there's a sensitive, softer, more serious side that I hope comes out in this interview. And if you stick around to the end, there's a bonus clip showing Dr. Dave up close and personal. I hope you enjoy this discussion. If you did, I'd appreciate it if you took the time to like and subscribe. It really makes a difference to the channel, and it means you won't miss future in-depth discussions with other interesting characters. Right, good to go.
It's interesting, your left leg's over your right. My right one's, there's something different about us.
Well, Dave, it's great to be in this hangar for this interview. It's a pretty special place for you, especially. There's a lot of history and memories and emotions here for you. Why did you set up this hangar like this, maybe to start with, and what does it mean to you?
Yeah, well, just to begin with, Craig, thanks so much for having us on this little video clip of yours. I really appreciate it, and our friendship, and especially with Nama as well. Just to clarify a point here, we have bus tour companies ringing us, wanting to come in here. I just tell them to fuck off. No
Why?
way. Because this is special. This is my spiritual centre. And the way it evolved was that Mark and I, who were instrumental in setting up our little aviation medical service, initially had our hangar at Ohakia, and the admin was done at Bulls Medical Centre. Then we had to really get out of Ohakia. You couldn't develop the business there. And I was so grateful to get a practice partner who bought in, Dr. Ken Young from Taihape. So we needed a purpose-built aviation medical centre. We were offered this amazing spot at Palmerston North Airport, and right next to the fuel bowsers, security, tower. And so 20 years ago, Mark and I, we set it up, built it. And what it's evolved into is really the dream that I always wanted it to be. It's not just a hangar, it's multi-purpose, and it's a community centre. Like I lecture Massey students here. I see pilots from all around the country here, coming here, and all we do is laugh. It's just so cool, And on top of that, it's hangarage for the aircraft, the admin for the Bulls Flying Doctor Service.
So did you have in mind when you first built this that you want to have all this stuff and displays?
Absolutely.
And
absolutely. Just like I built a roof, we got the best AV system in New Zealand, because I anticipated, as part of the way I am, that I would be lecturing and doing talks. You've got to have a good AV system, don't you? Now, the thing about this place, which I find, I never really thought about initially, but what it's evolved into is something much more important than the physical admin system and hangarage and all that sort of stuff. It's turned into the spiritual centre for me, because what you find is, after a period of time, you form a bond with pilots who, just like sailors, are free spirits, and they're awesome people. So now, when they've disappeared, they've died, or for whatever reason, we celebrate them here, like with our Shrine to Lost Pilots that I'm looking at now. And equally so, out of the blue, no one expected it, my son shot himself here upstairs. Now, I don't think even Mark knew he'd done it. It can be so random and so quick. So rather than running, and because a lot of people thought I would leave and this would be a dark storeroom, first thing, big sign out the front, Mark Baldwin Aerospace Research Centre, boom, and we celebrate him. And through that, everyone comes with us. It's like a positive veil. If we'd done the whinging, moaning stuff, this would be just a dark storeroom, and people would be saying, that's where that little shit shot himself. And now people say, yeah, oh, Mark, God, he's a great guy, what a shame. You know what I'm saying? It's a positive thing. And through that, Now, we not only celebrate our pilots here and other people on our Shrine to Lost Pilots, but I've found, we've got photographs up there of a number of young people who've done the same as Mark. And people have asked to have their photo up there because they like the way we've done it. Life's a journey. This is a bit shorter than ours, but I think they've recognised everyone has the potential to do away with themselves. And the feeling can come as quick as it goes. Boom.
So is this hanger for you?
Absolutely.
It's not for others, it's for you.
Oh, no. Sorry. It's
What
for
I
me
mean by-
spiritually, but this is a community centre as such, just like our medical centre. The police have it as a search and rescue centre. No cost.
So you're giving back to the community.
Yeah, I've got Starlink here. I've got all their HF radios. In Cyclone Gabriel, the big problem was communications. Here is the ultimate search and rescue centre. At the airport, security, fuel, the whole lot. They've all been down here. They know it's here. Equally so, the Aeronautical Society are going to start having their meetings here. I don't want to even be here. I trust them. You know what I mean?
And it's a cool place to come.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something quite different.
Yeah. The key thing is there's got to be rules. You don't want kids running around all over the show, turning it into a playground. Yeah. We did have one group of kids coming here, and the first thing one of them did was jump on the elevator of the aeroplane like a trampoline.
And a bit of respect, because you talk about Mark here, and there's a lot of stuff that deserves it.
And many others. But no, yes, it's a very special place, and it actually now is complementary with my mindset, in that for me, life's a journey, and I don't even know what the word retirement is because I've created adventures, not jobs.
There's a quote in your book, I think, from Ernest Hemingway, and you say, "It's good to have an end to journey towards, but it's the journey that matters in the end."
Oh, absolutely.
And you live life full on at 100 miles per hour.
Yeah.
It's non-stop, very focused.
Yeah.
Are you living life for the journey or for the end goal?
The end goal is to run out of puff eventually, to look back from your deathbed and say, wow, I went for it, because life has got so many cool things associated with it. And most of it's actually people. So no, I'll just never stop. And I'm so grateful to have a soulmate that, puts up with that mindset,
You often say you're never going to retire.
Absolutely.
That obviously means to me that, this is the journey for you. And
absolutely. Well, the best way of describing it is one of the people up on a Shrine to Lost Pilots is Norm Botcher. He died at 94 last year. A beautiful patient that I'd had for 35 years. And he wasn't rich. He was only a farm worker. He wasn't dumb, but he wasn't super bright. He built his own jodel. But a beautiful man, and they asked me to speak at his funeral. And in context, and this puts it in a nutshell, I said to everyone at the Takawa footy rooms that I wanted to thank Norm in the box. He'd been in Rongotia 92 years. I'd known him 35. And he had made it impossible for me to retire, because I realised the aroha from the experiences I developed from him was so good and so continuous, like they are with other people. How could you even think that would be as good as a holiday house in Taupo, where you catch a trout every week, you join Rotary and bloody die of old age? You know what I mean? It's people seem to be the stimulus for your brain. So thank you, Norm.
So does going fishing or relaxing on a beach have no appeal to you whatsoever?
Oh no, I've got
because
my time.
You're just full on in your work life, which you seem to enjoy so much is that your relaxation?
No, I've certainly got time out. Number one is, I go to bed at 8 at night and get up at 4. But that time is time out at night in bed. It sounds stupid, but I used to get up on call all the time. I don't anymore. And I know when I'm there, I'm not going to be disturbed. And it's awesome, especially if there's rain on the roof like a tramping hut. It's part of the journey, like I go and write in Quail Flat now. So when I did it a couple of weeks ago, I arrived at sunrise IFR came in, set up my mobile writing studio and sat there in my undies writing. A goat annoyed me, so I put my boots on and went chasing it with my two. There happened to be a trout go by. Now, I didn't have my fishing rod, but I had my 270. I'm not saying a word after that. But that's not only relaxing in paradise. No cell phone, no internet. That you come back recharged and revitalised. Mm-hmm. Like, for fear of boring you, I'm a great believer in a thing called neuroplasticity. It goes like this. When I was at medical school, we were told that the brain was a set structure. From 18 to 19 on, those neurons start to degenerate. You get a stroke or something like that, that's it. That's been shown to be the biggest load of bullshit that's ever turned out. There's a concept called neuroplasticity. Even in elderly people, your brain is rebuilding and constantly remodeling. And it's very similar to your muscles. If you stop using them for a month, they go floppy, don't they? Well, a brain's the same. You've got to keep it on the move. Every night it reboots, clears the brain fog. Old cells die, new dendrites form. But if you suddenly retire, how many people have you known who have suddenly retired, gone to so-called paradise of doing fuck all? In 6 to 12 months they're dead.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, when I worked at Air New Zealand, there were people that worked at the same desk for 30 or 40 years.
Yeah.
And so often, or many occasions, when they retired, they were dead after 12 months.
That's right. And they think, oh, it's going to be awesome, but they forget life is the stimulus and the adventure and pushing yourself, eh? Now, lots of people don't do that. Like, always my argument in New Zealand, there are a lot of people in New Zealand who are what I call living dead. They, sleep 10 or 12 hours, they get up whinging and they go to bed whinging and they don't do much, but they do like rugby and stuff. And it's not really pushing themselves, and a lot of them die early. So the idea is to get them going. So we'll see.
So do you think your drive came from your mum? She was a pretty full-on sort of person, wasn't she?
No, it's always a combination of genetic and environmental. I think inherently I'm a hard worker. Mum and dad there's a 30-year gap. It turned out we were dad's third family, but we were quite poor. And so it wasn't that uncommon to get up at 4 a.m. and go to the boating club at Mana, clean it, or the school, and do all those jobs. And I used to support Mum with her climbing and writing, doing labouring jobs. But I think, inherently I've always been a hard worker, but in those early days, when your frontal lobes haven't developed, you're a bit of a dope as well.
But there's a difference between hard workers and someone who's constantly on the go. You know what I mean?
That's right.
I think I'm a hard worker, but I don't have your drive.
That's right.
Maybe it's a bit of laziness.
No, I wouldn't.
Do you
say
have
that
to
about
constantly tell yourself, keep going, Dave, keep going, or is it just something in you that you can't stop?
It's interesting, a very interesting question, probably a deep one as well. But because always, since I've been a young person, I've had a strong spiritual bent. Dad was hard out Church of England, and I can see why. He was absolutely hard out. When my brother and I went to Sunday school, and it was a Presbyterian Sunday school, I never forget him saying, Presbyterians, oh, they're not Christians. But the reason he was hard out, was that his father was killed on the docks in England, crushed under a bale of wool. Mum lost her legs in delivery. And it was only the Church of England support system that kept them going. Otherwise, there'd be beggars on the street. So I can see where that mindset came. But what I'm saying is that he forced down our throats the basic parables of treat your fellow man as, it was pretty hard out. But Mum was the loose cannon, 30 years younger, the Buddhist view, the climber, the outdoors. So it was a great movement to have a foundation on, trying to be good, even though it wasn't easy. But to have that as well. So what I'm saying to you is, to answer your question, is that when you had that early behavioural input, but a genetic thing of probably hard work, I've always embraced the beyond the material world. And that was way before university. I used to hunt a lot by myself, and I just used to love it, the transcendence of the mountains. I had a mystical experience once, but I don't want to bore you about that, but I've never forgotten it. And through that, I've tried to develop my spirituality. So every morning I'm up at 4 and I go to my little synagogue, my bush synagogue, I call it. I'm not Jewish, but that's what I call it. And what I find is that with my mantras, it gives me mongrel, gets me going. And so
you've got these rituals that you do to keep your mind in the right
that's right.
state.
And I'm getting better and better at them too. Like, for example, say if you want to be good at gymnastics, or I've always liked martial arts, you've got to practice, don't you? It's the same with spirituality. You can't just read a book. It takes practice. Some Buddhist monks practice for 40 years and they never reach where they want to go. So anyway, that's where I'm at, and that's what keeps me going. Yeah.
But something I admire about you is you just don't give a toss about what people think about you.
Well,
Because most of us say we don't, but we actually do. But you really don't seem to care.
Well, I do really I do really, but I don't suffer fools. That's the problem. Like Mark was, and me when I was younger, especially at Marlborough Boys. I was bullied a bit. But I'm not now. But so I thank those people. But so I like to take care of the people who are the downtrodden, but I don't suffer fools. Can't stand it, And one of the greatest spiritual mantras in virtually every pathway is freedom and free speech. So, if I tell people the truth, well, prove me wrong, and I'll take the hit. Hey.
If I look back and contrast your early days as a doctor from what I've read about you, where you knew nothing to where you are now, you're highly experienced, you've seen a lot, you deal with thousands of people a year, nothing seems to shock you. Do you feel like you've seen it all, or does something come along every now and then that still makes you take a step back?
Yeah, well, I used to, in the early days at the general practice, I was doing up to 120 hours a week and delivering kids. And, the only doctor in one big rural area. And I used to go home at the end of the day, Friday, say to Sandy, I don't think I'll ever see some of the things I saw this week. But I used to say it every fucking week. But what I'm saying is that it's just such a privilege being a doctor, because all the jams that those people have been in, I've been in a lot of them too. And the problem you have, the problem I have, number one is, I don't remember ever asking to be born. Even worse, I'm plonked here rather than New Delhi, New Zealand. No one gave me an instruction manual. So you got to bumble through life and just hope you've got people that can guide you. So, as a doctor, I try my hardest, but shit, sometimes patients turn up and they start saying stuff, and I said, "You mean there's more?" And then what almost immediately happens, you start laughing together. Yeah, there's fucking more. One of the funniest places I ever worked at, actually, was I used to work at lunchtimes at the National Security Unit. There was Lake Alice up there on the hill. And at lunchtimes, I used to go up there to earn money to buy equipment in the medical centre in the early days. And so in the National Security Unit, all the people they couldn't handle in all the psychiatric units, the bad people, they used to put in this, including the bad psychopaths and stuff. But shit, man, I had some fun up there. You know, these people had nothing to lose. A lot of them were actually severely abused when they were younger. And the humour, like, for example, there's a guy, he's since died, called John Tacona, a 25 stone islander. And he fell in love with me. I used to let him cuddle me, all right. But he found out that I liked Michael Jackson. So this 25 stone islander learnt to moonwalk. He came up the ward and he'd go between the rooms. Anyway. Yeah.
But seeing so many hundreds of people every week, maybe, I mean, you must have seen a lot.
I've seen
And
it.
you see a lot of humanity and the lows and highs of humanity, I suppose.
Absolutely. But I think, you know, everyone's got a snapping point. You know, there was pretty tough times in those early days. And I thank my resilience, because I've lost doctor mates to suicide and stuff. But, you know, it's almost, you know, like it sounds stupid, but one of my heroes is Arnold Schwarzenegger, and so everyone's going to turn off their bloody videos. But no, I loved his Netflix life of Arnold Schwarzenegger, because he started off real hard.
Yeah, that was quite impressive.
It was, his father used to beat the shit out of them. We got beaten, you know, but everyone got beaten those days. His mother used to get beaten. But he said, you know, in his amazing success, those beatings, he grew out of it. He quoted the philosopher, I can never say him, it's not Nietzsche or someone. He said, some people grow out of the ashes, and I grew out of the ashes at Bulls. Example, 3 kids in a car. Turn around the corner, there's a tractor with the forks down. 2 lost their heads straight away. The other one, I couldn't resuscitate. I went back to the surgery. The police, ambulance, fire brigade all took a bit of time off, bit of counselling shit. I went back to a waiting room with 10 angry people. You're late, doctor. How do you survive that, eh? Well, I fucking well did. And so that's made me. You know, when you've done that, that could have cracked you. You could have gone down to the bridge and hung yourself, eh? No, didn't do it to me, just made me tougher. So I appreciate my past, you know. The bad times have actually been, I thank them, because it's made me who I am.
On the subject of shocking and tragic events, can we go back several years, back to 2010, to the Fox Glacier accident? You were there on the day, you saw it happen. Can you describe the events that happened on that day?
Yeah, sure. It was a very interesting day. I was up at 3, and at 4:24, or was it 36, I was putting my flight plan in, and on the last sentence, the Flight Information Centre a guy yelled to me, "The roof's falling in. I can't continue this." And I said, "It's only one more sentence, bro." And he said, "Fuck off," or something, and disappeared. And it was the first major earthquake in Christchurch. I never forget that. So that was a bad start to the day. Now, I had to wait another couple of hours because I was deliberately going to Fox Glacier to film a skydive with Rod, who was killed.
You were going to do your skydive
Yes,
yourself?
that's right. So anyway, a few hours later, information got back on. I got my flight plan in, and I cruised on in there to Fox Glacier. I was going to do a medical too as well, and I landed, and Rod helped me take the camera off the tail fin that we were going to use in this skydive. And Rod said to me, he said, "Dave, can we hold this flight off, because we've got 8 punters, and it'll be perfect to take them, and we'll do you not on this flight, we'll do you on the 3rd one." So I was due to be on that flight. So anyway, I said, "Yeah, no sweat," because I was so grateful, and we were going to do it as part of our Healthy Bastards movie. So I set up in their little outfit and started doing a medical, and I've got to describe the atmosphere. It was so awesome. Young people laughing, and Charmy, the pilot, was wearing my flying doctor hat. He had teeth, white teeth, and he was fueling up. And, oh, hey, Dave. And then they all got on board, and Adam stopped them and said, the doctor hasn't got a coffee. And his wife, I think, was running. They got us a coffee. And before they got in, I checked Chris, the vet's vision. And he said, you're a vet, you're not a doctor. And I said, you won't be able to read this anyway. You masturbated too much when you're younger. But I'm saying it was just this carnival of beautiful youth. Then I started doing Nathan Healy's medical. They're farting around. I heard it roll, and then someone yelled out, watch out. Anyway, I looked out, and the plane was going up about 45 degrees. I said, oh, yes, different. And it wasn't out of control. And then it came round in a big arc, like a top dressing one, and then descended, and then levelled out about 30 feet, maybe 35 above
Heading
the ground.
back down the runway?
Heading back towards the runway.
Yeah.
Slightly off centre. At that point, I didn't think anything was wrong, and people were yelling, come, 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 come. And I thought, oh, this must be some new bloody, for another $20 you get a bit of a thrill, buzz the place and go back up. But then I thought, well, look, the arse is hanging down a bit. And then I didn't even know until suddenly left wing drop and down, anything was wrong. And there was a crump, and then this massive fireball, And even then, I looked at Nathan, and we ran to his car, went down to Clutch's bloody hangar to grab a fire extinguisher, and we went down there. And I think John Sullivan came over from his house, and the three of us walked around the fireball in case someone had died, been thrown out. But at that point I was still just numb, and we were just walking amongst the flames, hoping that someone had. And the tough thing, that wasn't hard, because I go to car accidents, and that's my life, out there in Bulls. You do that stuff. In the old days, the ambulance only came if the doctor called it. And so it's all the smells, they're all the same. But the thing that got me was the sound. And it wasn't the fire, it was this really weird sound. So what the fuck's that, And I looked up, and it's this wall of screaming people running down. Fuck. It was terrible, because it was like, 1 minute you were in heaven. The next minute, this was hell, all these beautiful young people, in a split second, their lives had changed forever. And then there's just grief from there on. And, I was, me and we have special people there, Greg Rowan, all sorts of people. He was meant to be on the flight. And so then it settled down, but it's that sound that got me. I was able to fly away within 3 hours. Maybe I'm resilient, I don't know. And I didn't really cry after that till I got to 8,000 feet. Stuff, because you went through a hole in the cloud, and you circled up through it, and suddenly there's the Southern Alps, and you couldn't see anything down below.
I've actually got what you wrote in the book, which is a real powerful. Can I read it out?
Yeah, yes.
Beneath the awful grief I felt, I was calm. Perhaps that is something to do with the practice you get as a doctor, dealing with suffering and death as part of the everyday. I'd been doing it for 25 years by now. I wasn't hardened to it, but I think I'd learned to accept it. Death, they say, in the midst of life. Still, it was a tough flight. My takeoff took me directly past the crash site, and I flew out into the same airspace where something weird had overtaken another highly experienced, very competent pilot in a well-maintained aircraft. Then I climbed to 10,000 feet, looking directly over where they should have been over only a short 3 hours before. There was a layer of stratus cloud over Fox Glacier with the tops at about 8,000 feet. This meant I couldn't see Aoraki Mount Cook and its co-councillors until I'd gone through a hole, and then suddenly there they were, presenting themselves to me in all their awful majesty. The next 10 minutes were spiritual. All that beauty remained, indifferent to the horrors I'd left behind on the ground. It's funny how one moment can be so disconnected from the next. Landscape on this scale is slow to pass by. As I climbed and the mountains revolved slowly to my right, I thought about the good buddies I'd lost and those poor young tourists who thought they were about to experience a highlight of their short lives. That made me think about everyone for whom death has come suddenly and when they least expected it. I set the autopilot and sat numb. I just needed to be home.
What I did find interesting, and it was one of the thoughts I had when I was going back, is that what I was experiencing and what I'd just seen was actually nothing compared to like some of the people in battlefields or World War II. Imagine being in Germany and say 100 bombers were shot down, or in Britain in the Battle of Britain where, you know, one day I think the Germans lost 166 aircraft. Everywhere there were aircraft full of bodies. You know, like, how did they cope? You know what I mean? Now, look, I didn't know those people, but I knew the tandem masters very well and the pilot. But, it just reminded me of what our grandparents and older experienced. And that helped big time.
How did that accident affect you long term? Did it take you time to get over that?
You never get over it, but, you know...
Did it affect you in any way?
It always affects you in a certain way, but, you know, I say again, just like I've lost so many patients, and you can see up on the Shrine to Lost Pilots. I was at Mark's grave scrubbing it up this morning, and there's more and more people there, and my times are coming. You know, I'm not going to dwell on it. You know what I mean? Because my times are coming, but I've got plenty to do beforehand. You know.
And you were involved in the investigation afterwards to some extent. Why did you feel like you had to get involved in that?
It was a crock of shit, mate. You know, I just could not believe it. The cops took me seriously. They interviewed me on the spot. They're very good. And then I went through Wanaka, and they called me up to give another review. And I gave a diagram, and, you know, it was quite a comedy, actually. There's this big, huge corn-fed cop. God, I'd hate to be a crim facing him. And he had fingers like salamis. And anyway, he said, right, let's start. Ding, ding, ding. I said, I'll be here for a fucking month. What say you give me the questions and I'll type it. He thought, yeah, it's a great idea, and he got his cup of coffee. But I did what I thought was a pretty good statement, particularly the second time. So at that point, I think I had 4,500 hours experience. I'd had some training in crash investigation. I saw the whole thing. So I waited for TX call to give, you know, for investigator to tell me what happened. And nothing happened. Then I heard a report was coming out. So I rang the chief guy. He was ex-Air Force, McClellan or someone. You know, he's a good fella. I rang him and said, hey, aren't you going to interview me? He said, oh, Dave, you know, you got your police report. That's pretty good. When I saw that preliminary report, I was so angry. You know, like, it was just bullshit. They said the plane went up, lost control and dropped. No, it didn't. You know, somehow Charmy got control, partial control back. And, you know, there was a terrible split second, you know, maybe he could have run it on the ground and it would have gone through the fence, injured people. Maybe he's trying to get it back. I don't know, but it wasn't out of control for a good part of it. So I was really upset with that, yeah. But, you know, you can't change it.
No.
C'est la vie.
Can we go back to your early life a little bit? You mentioned your mum.
The conception or the birth?
Yeah, well, let's start at the conception.
Forceps.
We might as well start at the start. Your dad was 26 years older than your mum, I think,
Yeah, something
and
about
you
that,
said
but-
he seemed too old to be a dad.
Yeah, he's definitely he was a good man, a really good man.
Was he more like a grandfather to you?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he struggled with us. He was 66 when my sister was conceived, and we were pretty loose as a family. We were free spirited, and an elderly person does struggle with that, I think. And in the early days, all of us used to get hidings and stuff. What I appreciate for it was after a while, I just bend over and say, "Hurry up." Didn't feel the pain. Just get it over with. I want to go fishing, But no, I love the fact that I was born in the family I was, and it certainly wasn't the nuclear family, good-looking dad, good-looking mum, about the same age with a bit of dough. We had a very different upbringing, but there was a lot of love. Like we used to have birthday parties for our dog, and the whole street would turn up. The dog would have to sit there on the seat with a party hat on. So it was a great upbringing. It really was, but different.
Yeah.
And we, it was only a fishing village when we were younger. And look, I've got to give Mum credit in the sense that she was obviously different, but lots of young women marry older men. That's all right. But it was certainly, they must have had a hard time from the community.
Yeah.
And I say, fuck the community. They brought us up very well, thank you. But the one thing Mum did, she had these weird ideas. A lot of my friends thought she was a witch because she would give us gorse flower salads, a lot of, the natural stuff, fennel tea and all that. And I think that she was really good for us 4 kids because, we weren't
was probably a
subjected to
bit ahead
food
of her time.
colourings we had pretty good development, upbringing, and she was very supportive, She held me in pretty high esteem because we had very similar love for the outdoors. And I always felt I had a minder with her. She used to drive me crazy sometimes. But I remember I got into trouble with a gang once, and it ended up in a bit of a brawl, and they were going to come and get me. But I always felt, you haven't seen my mum yet. I always felt sort of safe like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's nice.
Anyway.
Yeah.
But no, she's pretty cool. But, I think in the end, she became a bit overprotective. But look, I've got to say, whatever people think of her or whatever I think of her, she was the one that got me to university. And I thank her for that. I'd probably be in bloody jail now if it wasn't for her. She always believed in us. There was a time where I didn't have a lot of friends. Part of it was, I don't know, I used to have a very special gift of being able to piss people off. But I was always real happy, with the way I was. But just needed a bit of maturity, actually. There's no question I was an idiot sometimes. But she always believed in us. And it's her that got me to university. So, and I thank her for that, yeah.
In 1966, when you were 9 years old, your dad had a bad car accident and was badly injured. And I think that brought on some pretty tough times for your family. Yeah. And your dad, Stan, during that time was found to have had a couple of other women and some kids.
Apparently, yeah.
Overseas.
Yeah. Well, she got in charge of the finances and realised that a lot of money was going for maintenance, yeah.
You've got some step brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
Have you met them?
Yeah, shit hot. They're a great lot. The first lot in England, they came looking for us. In fact, when I was at, I didn't really find out till I was about 21, 22. Any of this happened. Mum kept it secret. But when Sandy and I were at med school and she was at Tikol in Otago, we went into the post office and there's a wanted sign for the Baldwins. And it was the Baldwin family in England looking for Olive Baldwin, Stanley Baldwin, rah, rah, rah.
Oh, so they had the same surname.
Yeah. And they just wanted to get contact. But Mum she was terrified they'd try and come and get half the house. And so that was shut down straight away. And, you know, I didn't give a shit, to be quite honest. But it evolved that we did get contact with this family. One of the main ways it happened was by accident, because the second family Dad had was this a son called Rod, who was a major in the army. And I only got onto him because one of the fellas said to us, Dave, I've seen your Healthy Bastards book, and I know a guy called Baldwin who looks a bit like you. He's my fucking half brother. They're a pretty good guy too. And I've only really I haven't had a lot to do with him. But I know he's a good guy. But the sort of little bit of grief I've got was that he was a champion boxer and he's about 6'6". I could have used that guy at college, mate.
He came along a bit late.
Yeah. That's right.
That's why I think families are so interesting. We've all got secrets and skeletons in our closet that we want to hide. Man, some of the stories that families have, you know, you couldn't write a book about it, could you?
Absolutely. And I think, you know, that's been a great help to me as a doctor, actually. You know, like, you know, you can tell when people are telling you special stuff. And, you know, you can, you know, you've sort of been there or even you haven't, but you can empathise with them. Because part of being a doctor is you know, levelling with them, you know. But no, there's a lot of strange families out there, right? But, you know, like, the stranger they are, the better, I reckon.
Yeah, well, that's right.
Yeah.
Gives a bit of character,
Yeah,
doesn't it?
like we had one, I'll give you an example, I don't mean to bore you, but we had one crowd, they're dairy farmers out by Tangamoana, and I'd call this guy Bill, because I don't want to bring names in, but he was the size of a tank. Anyway, he came in huffing and puffing, like a hillbilly, you know, sorry, a steam engine. And I said, "What's wrong, Bill? What's wrong?" "Ah, you won't believe it." I said, "What?" "On my farm, I found marijuana." You know, someone had planted some marijuana. "Oh, what did you do, Bill?" "I got my tractor, dug it up." I said, "Wow." Anyway, it turned out to be his son's. And his son was so pissed off, he burnt down his father's barn. It's his inheritance. It got worse. Anyway, that son, who was a big bad struggy, my understanding he ended up dying because he got short of bloody drugs and alcohol, so he drank milk and petrol and had a smoke. All gone.
Shit.
Boof. But all I'm saying, I don't, you know, it's a shame. And this guy, Bill, and his wife were great people, but just didn't quite work with one of the kids. Actually, the wife was one of the toughest women I've ever met. Made Mum look like a kindergarten cop, you know, a kindergarten teacher. I remember she had bilateral knee replacements. 2 days after discharge, she was in the cow shed. And boy, if I, you know, annoyed her.
She didn't stand fools.
We had another lady like that at Bulls. I didn't accidentally. I put on a script. She had calipers. I put on a script, blah, 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 in 3 pink condoms, small size. Anyway, I should have smelled a rat because I was with a patient and I heard click, 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 click. She didn't even need the sticks coming down the hall, and the door burst open and she beat the shit out of me with her walking sticks. "You cheeky little shit, you ever do that again, I'll kill you." Anyway, I never did it again. No.
Good boy.
Yeah.
So when you were a kid, it sounds like you struggled a lot at school.
Yeah, but it's not that I was dumb, it's just I just didn't get it.
Yeah, well, you probably weren't channeled in the right direction, but there's a really interesting story in the book about when you're in primary school and your teacher, Miss Thompson, asked you to
That's right.
all group yourselves into two groups, A or B group. That was the first time you
Yeah.
realised you weren't actually dumb.
That's right, absolutely. And it just has a bigger question, because I'll just go back a step, that when you're, a bit of a dumbass kid running around but got potential, then people do try and help you. And I did a speech once and I said, 5 people have helped me in my life that have made the difference. All are women. 3 were teachers. And 2, maybe 3, didn't even know they did it, that it worked. Now with that, Mrs. Thompson, she must have seen I had a bit of potential. And she said, excuse me, okay, 2 reading groups, A and B. But there's a big problem here. And everyone goes, what? We're in Form 1, I think, or was it Form 2? I can't remember. We're in the old chemist shop there. And you have to choose what class you're in. And this was suddenly terrifying for me, because instantly everyone got it and looked at me.
But at the time, you were in the dummies group, was that right?
No,
beforehand?
there was no such group as such, but I was always seen as one of the lower echelons in terms of, the achievers with intelligence. I wasn't dumb, but I just didn't
get it. But that's where you thought yourself was.
Yeah. Anyway, and I wasn't interested in reading. I wanted to catch hares and stuff. Anyway, everyone got it. And the terror I had, because if I went for A or B, where would my friends be? And all my friends looked at me because they knew I was as dumb as. You weren't going to go for A, were you? I know. Anyway, when I said, and there were a lot of people here, I probably, fought with and caused trouble with and whatever, I said A.
Why'd you choose A?
Because I thought I was pretty cool, and maybe my friends would go for it too. So it was a gamble. And it took 10 minutes to control the class. Everyone united in this great feeling. It didn't matter what nationality, who you were. Everyone knew I got it wrong. But to this beautiful teacher's credit, she kept me there.
What group did your friends choose?
B. They're all pretty one with it all. And so I think there are 5 of us there. And what I loved about it was, you had to read aloud, and I had this grubby little finger going to the words, but I got better and better. And these people didn't laugh at me. You know what I mean? Mm. And I never forget that. It was such a cool thing, eh? And she must have seen that I had potential, but break us out, separate us out. You know what I mean?
So do you think that was sort of a start of you realising you could make something of
That's
yourself?
Right. And I think my mother saw the same, because that's how I ended up at Marlborough College. We were in a bit of a dodgy group, in her view. I thought everyone was cool, but they must have decided I wasn't going to go anywhere. I don't know where they got the money, but my older brother and I went to Marlborough Boys. Now, that was rougher than anything I'd put up with. There's some really tough people in Marlborough at the time. But I seemed to survive all right at the boarding school. And I got the form prize in the 4th form. Shit, where'd that come from, But we were forced in the evenings to sit down and do the homework. And by the time I went only to 2 years there, came back to Tawa College, I got into a top class, So, that peer pressure is a big deal, wasn't it? Mm. Yeah. So it was similar to Mrs. Thompson, Mum recognising, get us out of here. I still don't know where they got the money from, and I'm very grateful for it.
Yeah. And you said you rewrote the textbooks into Dave's spiel so that your brain could comprehend it.
That's right, absolutely.
So that sounds like a lot of work, but it was something you had to do to of move on in your education.
That's
and
right.
You've done that right through your life, have
Absolutely.
you?
The thing is that I don't even know how I'd do in an IQ test. I'm not that sort of way inclined, sort of all these quick problem solvings and stuff. It just doesn't seem to register in my head. But what I found is in lectures, if I wrote everything down word for word, then went to a few books and coalesced it and then rewrote it into I called it Dave's Speak or something. Once I got that, I'd get A+, because it was put in a form, you know, and I got it from then.
But you did that right through university?
Yep. Because when I went to university, you know, I'd already dropped out from Victoria and done a couple of years truck driving and possuming and stuff. When I went to do the science degree, I'd failed school cert science, you know. And I was, you know, that Professor Munford made me do 6 chemistry papers and 2 biology ones in first year. I couldn't even spell chemistry. But all I had to do was stay in that library, and because in the end, even chemistry is rote learning. I was also very grateful to what I call the library groupies. You know, they're all the young guys who'd already done first year, essentially, in scholarship, like at Boys High or stuff like that. And they're all pretty ugly too, so the chicks weren't interested in them. So they all hung around the library talking a whole lot of bullshit. And somehow or other, a few of them, Doug Akula was one of them, they just took us under their wing. And I just loved that guy, Doug. You know, he just was so patient, you know. I just don't fucking get it, Doug. No, look, let's go back a step, Dave. You know what I mean? Whoa. And before long, what actually embarrassed us, I started getting better grades than him. You know, I got it, you know what I mean? And I knew at the end of first year I could be a doctor if I wanted to be.
It's amazing the people like Miss Thompson who actually take the time to nurture and spend time with kids and make a difference in their lives, as opposed to many teachers who just don't worry or cast them off. You look at people like yourself and so many others who actually wouldn't have made something in life if it wasn't for those people.
Absolutely. And, well, that's my wife, you know, Sandy, she's been a school teacher for 40 years or so. She's one of the ones. Like a lot of the people in the school, they look for those people. In fact, they quite like the ones that are a little bit of spirit, you know what I mean? And, you know, that could go either way. But, you know, Sandy is quite, and a few of the teachers have told me, they can spot the murderers early on. You know, like, for example, one humbling experience I had was at the Wairua War Museum. And I was a house surgeon then. And I spotted the old headmaster, Brian Walker. Boom, there he was. So I went up to him and I said, "Hello, Mr. Walker, it's Dave Baldwin here." "Yeah, I know, yeah." Oh, shit. I said, "Look, I just want to apologise for being a wanker at college. You know, I feel I probably pushed the boundaries a bit and I was immature." And he looked at me and said, "Dave, you do not realise how superficial you were." But he said, "Don't worry about it. But what I have a problem with now is we could kick you up the arse, there was no problem. And you just saw it as part of life. And usually you would correct yourself, actually. Now we have some truly evil children. They'll burn our houses down and no one will do anything about it." So, you know.
Yeah, it's amazing the number of really successful people you see in life, and when you look back at their history, they never succeeded in school.
Absolutely.
You know, Bill Gates, Richard Branson, it's incredible.
That's right. That's right.
So you did a Bachelor of Science degree at Massey and your medical degree at Otago.
Yeah, I was very privileged, and it was actually quite a tough decision. Because I knew the vet people, I think I could have got into vet okay. And I got accepted for medicine. You know, fuck, I couldn't believe it, you know. I think I could have been a vet okay as well, but I'm glad I chose medicine. Even though in Bulls, even after 40 years or whatever it is, 30, how many I've been there, I get letters addressed to me, Vet Dave Baldwin's. Sort of grey zone, eh? But no, I'm very, very proud of going to Otago. It was great. And even prouder that I got a soulmate at Massey before I went to med school.
Yeah, so you met Sandy way back then.
Second year, yeah. End of second year, straight away we started living together, and I worked as hard then as I do now. I was up early, study, and I was so grateful to have. She's taken care of us since, man. It's been an awesome thing. So if she suddenly took off with a truck driver, she deserves half, man, easy, because she's been there right from the beginning.
You proposed to her after only a few days.
Absolutely, mate. Everyone else had told me to get lost, Somehow or other, I was too immature.
You bet you were smart enough to see a good thing when it came along, obviously.
Well, I was so grateful that, like she asked me to a party, I said, "Are you feeling all right?" But
Will you marry me?
no, it was a little bit the time after that, but I was just, like, it might sound really strange to you because I don't know what your upbringing is, but you had demons. One of them was we lived in a pretty dodgy house. I loved it. We were in a bedroom, all three brothers. We all slept with our dogs, but it was a bit of a dump. I don't mean to knock that because I loved the fact we were brought up there, but I was always embarrassed. So when I was in the first 15 and we were asked to billet, I'd always say no. And I was terrified I'd be lumped with one. But in actual fact, it was immaturity that brought that on, because there was a lot of fun and laughter in our bloody house. Shit, man, some of the things that happened. And so what I'm saying to you is that one of the things that sort of held off the girlfriend thing too was, when she comes to her house, and mum's different, and, you have these hang-ups, which wasn't true. It was only in my head.
So when Sandy came along...
She stayed the night with us in my old bedroom. She didn't care, Mum drove her up the wall, but she just rolled with it. And I thought, she just takes me the way I am. Like, I don't have to live any airs and graces or bullshit. So she's been my best friend since, So, no, it's a big deal.
You did 6 weeks in forensic pathology during your medical training. That must have been a really interesting job.
Oh, shit, yeah.
Can you just talk a little bit about what you learned about maybe the human body? And
all the young people love CSI and stuff. It's fascinating. And I was actually thinking about being a pathologist. And one of my really good friends is Kendrick, who's doing his 3rd bestseller now on all this post-mortem stuff and the stories around it. But in 6th year medicine, you're given 3 months to go around the world and develop experience. The Sudan or Hawaii, wherever you like. Most of them did that, but I ended up in the morgue at Wellington. Oh, man, it was awesome, running behind this Dr. Thompson, a forensic pathologist. It was just mind-blowing, like you'd come in on a Monday morning and, it was like, like you'd see the chief mortician, trying to get a cigarette going like this. There'd be 8 bodies. You wouldn't know whether they're rich or poor, just totally naked on stainless steel things. And, the mortician would be trying to get his fag going, and Dr. Thompson would say, "Bill, what do we got going today?" And he'd say, "Hang on, I'm trying to get me a cigarette." Like, it was just a job. And he'd say, "Oh, that one there, yep, that was the car accident up in the Runga Gorge. Remember that one?" Dr. Thompson would nod. "That one, oh yeah, that one's the murder. You better bloody take good care of that one. Yeah. And then he'd say, "Hey, that one fell out of a fucking tree." Like suddenly this was the way people's lives ended. Like I just found it an amazing experience, And these pathologists actually were really good people. But it's like, if you didn't develop a slight black humour like the police in South Auckland or something, you go mad. Eh?
It's amazing leveller when you put it like that. I mean, poor, rich, evil, good. We all end up on the same table.
Absolutely. And, look, it's a very humbling experience to see that. And you felt it in the anatomy ward as well. People would donate their body and you'd often wonder, who was this person? It was someone's grandmother, Absolutely. But it actually has helped me spiritually, because I'm adamant in my mind, but everyone's got their own view, that there is some entity within it that moves on. So this is only the vehicle. In fact, I don't want to bore you on this, but when we were in Rome a few months ago, we went to this monastery. There's 4,000 skulls there. And I said to the chief monk, because they're actually chandeliers made of femur bones and little fingers poking down. I said, what are you guys doing? You know, like this is like the House of Horrors. And he said, look, they're all monks. Maybe there's the odd burglar in there who never quite realised where he was going. But we're trying to get across. The body's a vehicle. That's what we're trying to do here. I said, oh, yeah. Well, you certainly have. Anyway.
And you talked about the brain in the book, and you said a person's entire world exists in this nondescript blob of jelly, their thoughts, their memories, their personality, their intelligence.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's crazy, isn't it?
It is crazy.
You know, and it's just going to rot away into a...
That's right. But see, the way I think about it now is that whatever entity, whether you call it a soul, spirit, energy force, I don't care what you call it, I think it encompasses the whole body. Like, you know, certain societies used to think it was in the heart, so they pull the heart out, or we suddenly decide it's the brain. And the reason I've now concluded it's the whole body is that I've seen people with brains the size of walnuts do strange things that were way beyond a walnut's ability. Like, for example, we had a patient in a rest home who was totally demented, small brain, lying there on the bed going, dependent on toileting, feeding, everything. Just waiting to die, basically, but didn't. In the same room was someone dying of prostate cancer. When that person died, the moment they died, there was a family member with that person. And the moment that prostate cancer person went floppy, Mr. Braindead sat up and went, yes, wow, you know, like that, and then lay back down and just went, you know, like the brain couldn't have done that, you know what I mean? And it just coincided with that moment of death with the other person. So to me, I think there's something, the brain's only the computer. Yeah, it's somewhere, it's something else. I don't know. I mentioned in my Bushman's Bible book about a guy called Bono, that's not his name, but he saw a ghost. I said, how'd you see a ghost? And he said, oh, I was on this double bed and his dog suddenly went berserk. And he was on the double bed thinking, shit, what's this all about? And he followed the dog's head moving. Then as it went past the mirror, a heat signature went past. Then the dog's head went to the wall. Then the dog went outside and chased the spook up the road. The old Bono went, wow, thank God for that. But I don't know. I have no idea. I don't want to speculate. No. All I know is that for me, I don't believe there's something. I know there's something, and that comes from 46 years of science and medicine. And I'm not smart about it. I know nothing. The more I know, the less I know. Mm. But I find it, what an amazing journey trying to sort it all out. Mm.
When you finally became a doctor, what did that feel like?
Well, I couldn't actually wear my label for a while. I was too embarrassed.
Because you didn't think you should
anything.
Be? It's one thing being a pilot. I mean, it's not that hard, but being a doctor, even though you've done 7 years of medical training, there's still so much you don't know, but you've somehow got to pretend you do.
Well, I think you learn pretty quickly that you're a cog in a machine, you know, and the system is pretty good. There's a house surgeon there, you know, you've got certain jobs and standing orders, so it is pretty safe. Look, in the early days though, when you were doing huge hours, you know, there was a lot of responsibility that it's probably, you know, it was pretty scary in those early days. But still you did have standing orders, you know. Mm-hmm. But through that, you know, I learned a lot, you know, it's great. You know, see one, do one, teach one.
Because you seem to be unsure what your pathway was going to be at this point.
That's right. I think it was always destined to be general practice because every house surgeon I wanted to be a specialist in it. but I really had to get it off my chest. And 2 years, you know, in the hospital as a med reg and thinking, being a cardiologist, I realised that wasn't my scene, man. I needed to be free out of this place. And that's when the Air Force arose. But I'm so grateful for that 2 years as a medical registrar, not just because of the experience, but the friendships I formed. Like, for example, Kendrick Temple Camp, who's, you know, who's launching in 2 weeks. He's done 2 bestseller books. He's launching the next one in 2 weeks' time, and he's got me as a keynote speaker. Now, that's not small bananas. We formed a real bond in those early days. His wisdom and what I learned was just mind-blowing. You know, like for those 2 years in a row, I got the Black Crow Award every year, getting the most postmortems. It wasn't that I'm Hannibal Lecter, because people consented. I could not believe how often we got the diagnosis wrong. And I mean totally wrong. So I learned a lot through that. I did, really did. So then I went to the Air Force after that, yeah.
Can you talk about your time in 75 Squadron?
Yeah, it was cool. So, you know, long hours at the hospital, Skyhawks flying overhead. Dad had always said he'd spent 50 years in the military, RAF and RNZAF. Great number would be a base doctor. They were desperate. So
They'll take anyone.
Yeah, they'll take anyone. And so I went and saw them. I said, look, yeah, I'll come be the base doc if that's sweet. And it was a great number. I had to do a full officer training though. That was 4 months. So I was away from the family. It was pretty tough on Sandy with 3 young kids. But I got in and I was one of the team. I was a flight commander. And so I had to run a flight as well as doing general practice and just all the work as a doctor and all the strike base and stuff. And it was a huge learning experience, a wonderful learning experience. Because when I walked on that base, you sniffed the hydraulic fluid and you knew you were a cog in a machine. Everyone had the mission, that is, to keep the strike force going, to defend our country. And everyone was so proud of it, you know. And even if the base commander was a bit of a wanker, everyone, they didn't mind.
And you even felt part of that mission.
Oh, yeah, I knew I was part of the team, mate. I was there to certify their medicals, keep everyone happy. At that time, I used to do all the general practice as well. I used to keep the families going. So really I was part of the Bulls community as well. And I did the on-call there. But it was a wonderful experience. It was on a war footing. Within 2 hours, if you were bleeped as a pilot, you needed to be airborne. You know, it was a great feel. You know, now through successive governments, they've just ruined it. It's terrible.
Yeah, you're a bit passionate about that, aren't
Absolutely. Because the greatest risk to us in the West, like's once been said by one of the great bloody secretaries of state in America, is thinking there's no risk at all. Well, look at it now. You know, the turbulence of this war. You know, one of my great one of my great learned friends who studies history has said, in his view, the world is now more unstable than it was before World War One. So just remember that, eh? You know.
Where were we up to?
Sex life.
Sex life.
Look, I really enjoyed the experience I got at Ohakia. But look, I think I'm a wartime doctor. I'm not really a peacetime doctor. And I love...
What do you mean by that?
Well, I like action, you know. It was exciting going on the base to start with because the focus was keeping the jets going, but, you know, like a monotony sort of formed with it, you know. And look, I would have hung too because I had a great opportunity with the Air Force. I only had to wait another few months and I would have had a 1.5 year paid study leave overseas or 150 grand or something. You know, it was pretty cool. But I've been doing the on-call roster with the local GPs, as well as doing general practice to local patients at the at Ohakia. And Dr. Walton had been in Bulls with his wife, practicing for nearly 50 years. And they were an awesome couple. Now, Dr. Watson had been a doctor there for 50 years before.
That's crazy. Two
I know, and
doctors
I
for a
thought,
century.
That's right. And I thought, there's something going on here.
I need to be part of this.
And then I saw that Dr. Walton said, look, do you want it? Because I'm going to put it on the market. And apparently 6 people, including myself, were interested. And I thought, what a great opportunity, like I'd be free, but I never have to leave Ohakia because I had my plane in the hangar there at the time. I loved the Skyhawks and the involvement. And, let's give it a go, build a foxhole, and then see how long I can last, And I was pretty naive in my thinking there, because what I thought I'd do was I'd kick everyone out from the Waltons practice and just be there by myself, and people come in, you make a few bucks, and I go deer hunting on the weekends. But that would have been the most stupid thing to do. I leased their rooms, bought their practice, and then there was just this wall of patients. And the nurses there, Julie and Elaine Reid, the admino, were unbelievably good. They really mothered us. And it became a great experience. I used to sleep there on the floor, and it was amazing medicine, and the locals were great, and the staff protected us. Like, I'll give you an example. It was about that time LTSA brought in their medical certificate for driving for trucks. And anyway, this guy's about 2 meters tall, turned up. He was like a Neanderthal. He had a growth excess issue. He's massive. Anyway, I did his medical, but accidentally ticked him unfit. And he went in a Kenworth truck to Palmy, stood in a queue for an hour, and then this little clerk yelled at him, "You're not fit!" Anyway, came whizzing out the Bulls in his truck to give me a hiding. Anyway, I hid under my desk, and he turned it, "Where's that Baldwin?" And the nurse said, "Oh no, he's gone now." He fucking better off. We had a lot of fun there, eh? And I realised that, look, this is not the quiet practice I thought it would be. And so the opportunity came up to buy the post office, a building. It was being split up into 3 divisions. And I went to the post office and I thought, look, bugger it, I'm going to stick around in Bulls, It's got a huge future if I can develop a medical centre. So it's just not me. So I went to the post office. My understanding, maybe I got it wrong, but my understanding is tenders had closed for this building. And there were 6 people involved, fish and chip shops and all this wanted it. It was a bloody good building. And I said to the chief postman, look, can I put in a tender? And I promise you it will stay a community centre if you will sell it to me. He said, it's yours, just like that.
Wow.
We didn't even argue costs. And that's a great credit to them. They didn't want it another fish and chip shop.
Mm.
And suddenly, me, Julian, and Judith, and Yvette, Elaine, there's this bloody huge post office. You can go, oh, and it sort of echoed. You think, what am I going to fucking well doing here? But I tell you, within a couple of years, it was already too small.
So you just started employing some GPs?
Well, I was lucky. I think Ruth Carter was the first one. She was awesome, and started developing more. Yeah, that's right. And the first real, I started training GPs. The first one was Tony Main. Unfortunately, he died of bowel cancer or cancer a few years ago. The most beautiful man. And look, it just developed from there. And then my real, apart from having wonderful bloody staff there, I was lucky enough to get Karen Greer as the manager. Then she was just a clerk, but now it's a true trade being a manager of a practice. Mm. And I was so lucky getting Dr. Ken Young, to come down with us from Taihape. He was actually getting like me. We were just getting buggered. And we got it together and said, well, we might be able to help each other out. And shit, man, we're complementary.
So he's still there?
Yep, still there. We're half shares with our family.
And you've got 6 or 7
There's
GPs?
about between 5 and 7 of us in total. It varies.
Yeah.
And we train them. It's a struggle because there is a shortage of all staff, whether it's GPs, nurses, engineers. But look, we're doing all right. We've got a great culture there. We all try hard. The community loves us because we've stuck around. But look, who knows,
So you talk about the shortage of GPs. If I was a young doctor toying up the idea of being a GP, how would you sell it to me? What would you say? I mean, what is it that you love about GPing?
Well, I think the essence of general practice is the doctor-patient relationship. And if you stick around, it's not about the money in the end. It's the arrow you develop with those patients, and it becomes very satisfying. You become very important in their lives.
I remember when we were kids, we had the same doctor right throughout my childhood. But now you can't find a doctor that's been around for more than a year, to save yourself.
Well, there is a shortage, but a new concept has developed where corporates are starting to buy up general practices as well, and so the owner-operated mentality's going. So like there's one general practice here, for example, in the area of the Manawatu, and I've said to a few of these doctors in this big conglomerate, how's it going? Oh, really well. But for the patients, they've got to wait 6 weeks.
It's hopeless.
Yeah, that's right. And so not only have they lost contact with the street, it's just a job to them, the patients are suffering.
Yeah, because as a patient, if you need to see someone for a dud knee or you're sick or something and you can't get a booking for a month or longer, well, it's a problem.
That's right. Absolutely right. And look, there are multiple reasons for this, but I think it could be fixed, excuse me, if a lot of people want to come to New Zealand, excuse me, a lot of people want to come, oops, sorry, bloody. Imagine dying on camera.
Be a final swan song.
But I don't like bollocking on in the sense that I know it's in aviation engineers. It's in so many people in New Zealand. But what you could do, particularly in medicine, is the medical council have to get real and have a quicker system of getting overseas people registered. Like there was one guy recently who came from somewhere. He was down Otaki way. They loved him. In the end, there was so much stick around with the medical council, he just left.
So have we got to a point in New Zealand where there's never going to be enough New Zealand doctors trained and we have to bring in all these overseas?
I think things could change pretty quick, General practice hasn't been that attractive to a lot of younger doctors, but it can quickly change. Just like the world scene, there's this huge uncertainty in the world, but all I can say is that look to younger doctors, like I had 6 of them in here yesterday. I spent the morning with them as part of their training, trying to get across to them that get your GP college membership, you need to be in the club, then you get involved with general practice, but maybe get a sideline like I have in aviation medicine. You might like search and rescue, you might like psychiatry or sexual health or whatever. And it's a great job like that. A lot of the hospice doctors are actually GPs. So it's how you sell it to them, I think.
What you said about dealing with people, I've found it's the same with being a commercial pilot. I mean, flying's a pretty boring job, really, but if you take an interest in the people and the passengers, it adds a whole nother level of interest that flying's never going to give you.
Well, if you take that sounds there, a lot of people really love that sort of flying. And if you on top of it smile at them, it doesn't cost a bloody thing.
Yeah.
They never forget it.
Yeah.
You're right.
What are some of the challenges of owning your own general practice business?
Well, I think there's always, the society has become more complaint orientated. So a lot of doctors can be affected by a complaint, especially if it's unfair. because a lot of people have become quite demanding now. You know, I had one complaint against me, and it went on for 3 years. And Sandy, I remember after about a year and a half, said, look, why don't you just say to them, look, it was all my fault, and like, I'll go and do a course, and sorry, and all that. And I said, I was not wrong. This is my mana, if you know what I mean. If I've done something wrong, I will go and apologise to that person, mow their lawns, whatever you like, and take it on the chin. But I know I was not wrong here. And so it's about my professional dignity, you know what I mean? So, you know, I learnt from that. I learnt that, in actual fact, the only thing that stands up in court is what you've written on your notes, and preferably at the time. But it was quite cruel. That complaint was generated at the end of a 94-hour shift, continuous.
Wow.
With very little sleep. And I still reckon I did an awesome job, but I didn't write down a certain way, so I paid for that, yeah.
So what was the outcome?
I ended up in the Ombudsman, yeah, and it all just washed away, yeah.
Mm.
And I would fight to the death for that. But look, I've made mistakes before, and boy, I'm the first to, you know, grovel and apologise, you know, and because I don't mean to, I just want to do a good job, mate, you know.
I mean, we're all just people, aren't we?
That's right, but, you know, if you've stuffed it up, you want to learn from it, eh?
Mm.
Yeah, that's right, and do your best, yeah.
So how'd you get into flying?
I'd always really had that inkling of flying. We're brought up in the flight path we're near the Tidai Bay NDB, and you see them all come in. I remember when the first 737s came in, and when I used to rabbit hunt in Pukerua Bay above, you'd see them come in on the sunset. Wow! And then Dad had obviously told us lots of stories about being in the RAF. You know, amazing stories. Like I remember one thing he said that we had to shoot some of the pilots. And I said, what do what? And when they were like in Iraq and stuff, and the pilots come in and crashed, they got covered in fuel because the fuel tank was here. And they'd start burning. And there's no way they're going to survive, so they'd get a 3-0 and shoot them.
Wow.
I know. But anyway, it was in the blood. It was in the blood. And then my older brother got his pilot licence, and I thought, shit, it wouldn't be a bad idea to give it a go. So there was no way I could ever contemplate it through med school. And when I was going to buy the general practice in Te Anau, when it became obvious, look, we'll go to Palmy, you know, Sandy seemed happy with the fact that, look, you'll go to Palmy, and look, you can't have the mountains, but look, get your private pilot licence. And it never stopped. Mm-hmm. It was awesome down in the old Rat Pack there with United Aviation. Great group of people. And most of them are bloody captains on Cathay now. I can't believe it, eh?
But there was a wee upset soon after you got your CPL. I think you run out of gas.
Yeah, that's right. That was my first commercial flight. I actually show it now because I've done a few talks recently on the hazards of flying in the mountains that I've found personally. I'm not an instructor. And my first commercial flight, which was to photograph a farm, ended up buzzing a GP's house, and I ran out of petrol. The two interesting things out of that were, because I was all right, crash landed the thing, and I didn't actually destroy the plane, which is great, but the two interesting things out of that I've never forgotten were, number one is I was actually okay in a crisis, but the real risk was actually the passenger. The passenger became the risk because they started screaming and carrying on. So, you know, you're trying to land this bloody thing, and they're starting to talk Dutch and all this sort of stuff, you know. The other thing was that I was adamant then I needed to buy my own aircraft because I didn't run out of petrol because I didn't check. The owner didn't have a dipstick, and he had always said at a certain step on the fuel, it was a third full, but in actual fact, it was the reserve.
Oh, right.
So I checked, but I decided I'm going to get my own plane now and never let anyone fly it. always. So, yeah, that was interesting.
But the amazing thing about that is your medicine and your flying merged
yes,
together
right.
to form the Bulls Flying Doctor
Absolutely,
Service.
and
So do you
that's
want to just talk about how, when that idea came into your head and how you
sure.
got it up and running? And
Well, you
because
know,
that's pretty unique in New Zealand, isn't it?
that's
Or
right.
completely unique.
Well, I think you always go back to your roots in the sense that I was so fortunate to spend a lot of time in the mountains and the bush before I went to university. I went to university to keep my mum quiet, you know, because she kept bawling whenever I saw her because I dropped out and she couldn't afford to go to university when I was a kid and I'd waste my life. So, but I loved the mountains. So after I'd done a sort of an 8-year jail sentence at university and med school, you're thinking, how can I develop being a doctor into something where I can intertwine hunting in the mountains? So always the seed was sown, but it was actually consolidated as a trainee intern when I was at a meeting and, you know, with all the big shots at the clinical school, and no one would talk to us, you know, because you're only a bloody trainee intern, and all the professors were running around like Lord Muck, but way in the distance was this old cleaner, you know. And I went over and I said, fuck, do you want to talk to me? No one else will. He said, oh, I'm a GP actually. And there was a guy, I think it was Benson, I think, but he was the doctor in Havelock in the Sounds. And he told me about his job going around the Sounds in a whaler. And he had a great life doing house calls in his bloody boat. I thought, fuck, you know, what a great job. So always in the back of my mind was, what can I do to do something similar? I started doing a few medicals, flying down. I got my certification with CAA, and I started going down to Parapram and doing a few because I had a relative who had a flying outfit. And I thought, shit, I can expand this. But my little 108 horsepower Grumman wasn't enough to get around the country. So I thought, shit, I could actually make this rock, you know? And so I started developing that dream, and it was pretty hard out early on. Very difficult because I was doing long hours at the medical centre, incredibly tolerant wife, you know, no bullshit. And I thought, how am I going to develop it? And it slowly evolved. So, like, for example, my cousin Malcolm Walls was down in Mount Cook. He had a farm station there, and the chief pilot down from Mount Cook, the awesome guy, he said, look, come do our medical. So I flew all the way there and all the way back just to do the medical. And I wasn't even sure at the time what a mountain was, you know, what a mountain wave was. But I got there and got back, and I thought, I can make this work. So, but I took the hits all the time. Like, for example, once I started doing down the coast, West Coast, which I just loved, and, you know, because I was already doing some of the helicopter pilot medicals when we used to go down there on the Raw. The local doctors started ringing me and abusing me for going into their patch. Like, I remember the Scottish guy down the coast there, I won't say what town, but people will know, is a Scottish guy, old guy. He rang me about, you know, it'll be over 20 years ago now, 25. He said, what are you fucking doing coming down the fucking West Coast for to do medicals? He did. So I took a breath and I said, if you did a decent fucking job, I wouldn't be there, would I? And click. Anyway, he died down the track, so no, he's gone. But now I get young doctors talking to me and wanting to be involved, you know, like, because and I always help them because I don't want to do that stuff, you know, like bloody, so fingers crossed down the track I'll get someone to help us out.
Did you have any doubts it would work? I mean, there's so many hurdles to get it going. You know, you think of the cost of flying up and down the
Absolutely.
country, maintaining a schedule,
Yeah.
working around the weather, your other
Oh, yeah.
time commitments.
That's right. Nah, I always felt I could pull it off. Yeah, yeah. No, I thought it was the most amazing dream to tie in flying with the mountains. And look, she's sweet now. I've had to wind it back since Mark died, and also with the COVID, it's put a lot of pressure on in the medical centre, and just everything seems harder. So I've actually stopped going to Wanaka and Mount Cook, because those are the places that'll kill us on the lee side, the hills. I didn't realise that in the early days, but I certainly know now. But look, I've still got just under 1,800 pilots on the books, and a lot of them are down there, and it's a great privilege. I have a lot of fun, it's great.
Did you get any negativity from the CAA regarding the whole bulls flying doctor idea?
Initially, they're a bit twitchy because...
I mean, they're not that receptive to new ideas, are they?
Yeah, the regimes change, which is quite good, and often new regimes just roll with whatever's happening. The initial regime were a bit twitchy because legally you just promulgated for one area. But, and there were 246 examiners when I started. They were everywhere. It was basically a GP signing off an extra form, but it started to get a bit more academitized, and you had to do the DipAvMed diploma. And the CAA were a bit twitchy, but then when the numbers started going down, and like, there was only one other person on the coast, and then, maybe he is doing a good job, and so, I got a lot of positives from them. So, initially they were a bit twitchy, but no one ever stopped me as such.
And I suppose with anything unknown, people just don't know if you're serious or if you're going to hang in there for the long
Well,
term.
I think they had a fairly genuine fear to start with, and that would be that a lot of them would become my mates, and I'd let them through easy. That has not happened. And in fact, what I've found is if my, good mates down there have an issue, they get the straight, this is what's wrong, but they know I will try my hardest to get it right.
Is there any, I'm sure the answer is no, but is there any pull or tendency at all to become like that or let something slip through?
But it's no different to a small town cop. I'm just the same. I'm a regulator in a small rural area. And so if they pull up someone with smelling of alcohol, should they breathalyse them or shouldn't they? Well, everyone I know of does, and they become hated. And, there are certainly cops they rant on about in Te Auno or Fox, bastard, he picked me up and, I help his kid at school shit, But I think the good people realise, look, I was over and he did, this is what you do,
So have you had any negative feedback from pilots for pulling them up on things that they sort of feel?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And, but I go along the lines, yes, you can be my friend and I be your examiner, but if you're a friend to me, you will see there is something wrong, and every examiner in New Zealand would have to do the same thing. That's right, absolutely. So, I have taken quite a bit, but every small town cop does as well. Yeah. But, I have got a reputation that I won't, these are the rules and you follow them. But what's awesome now is that the environment is so much better than when I started, because in 1989, there were black and white rules that certain vision over this, gone. Colour vision, gone. Now this whole concept's on flexibility. So you got all sorts of munted bastards flying with all sorts of funny cancers or twitchy this or that. But we know about it and it's being monitored, but they're still safe to fly. That's what flexibility is. So that's where it's become professionally very satisfying.
But you also have a reputation out there that you will fight for pilots to keep their medical.
Absolutely.
Which a lot of doctors, it's just black and white, and it doesn't really matter to them if they keep their medical.
Yeah, well, and like every profession, whether it's law, medicine, avtech like you, has got a group of people who the job's not really a calling, is it? And some actually enjoy pissing people off. Some instructors I know, especially in the Air Force, some of those Air Force instructors have been terrible. I know one guy's chopped on the day of graduation. How cruel is that? They must have had the guidance before that. So look, in the end, look, you can't change the world, but yep, I'll do everything I can to get you to fly the fly. But the proof is once you've been in court a few times, that's when you find out whether you followed the rules or not.
Yeah.
And so, I get a pilot to re-sign it. I've already signed it. No, you haven't signed it in my presence, have you? In court, they ask me, have you signed it in their presence? Well, I can't remember. So I just get everyone to do it. Oh, I haven't brought my second set of glasses. Well, get an optician in Anungahua to do it and flick me a note, because in court they ask me. So that keeps me sharp, but it keeps you sharp as an AvTech, hey? If you sign someone off with a lemon, man, and they prang, it's a manslaughter charge, hey?
You mentioned you did a diploma in AvMed. What's the difference between normal medicine and aviation medicine for a pilot?
Well, aviation medicine is a branch of what's called occupational medicine, occupational health. And that is certain jobs have certain medical risks and environments to them. So like divers deal with high pressure and the bends and stuff. Whereas the aviation environment is low pressure, and you're in an environment where your body's not built for the accelerative forces or funny orientations if you do aerobatics. And so you need to have certain standards of medical fitness to do that. And my job is to ensure they are fit to work in that environment and that they stay that way. And also warn them of the hazards. So it's in the Air Force, for example, you're also dealing with the groundies who had some pretty toxic bloody chemicals. The isocyanates and all that for painting, and there's a lot of stuff in employment that's particular to that employment.
So you've got this aeroplane behind you, really jolly good.
Yeah.
Can you talk about some of the safety mods and features that you've got on the aircraft? You've got rocks on the dashboard. I mean, what are they about?
Well, to start with, the aircraft itself is the perfect aircraft in my view for what I do. It's a lightweight 172 airframe, but with a big engine and variable pitch. So it'll get me out of trouble if I'm stuck somewhere in the mountains in a short valley or something. Not always, but it will get you out of trouble. It's got high lift and very strong wings. So if you're in turbulence, it's good. And it's got big tyres so I can land in the bush, but it's fully IFR capable with an autopilot so I can land, do long flights. So in my day-to-day activities with this, say if I do 4 legs, here, Hokitika, Fox, Neils Beach, Te Anau, I fly on the autopilot to Hokitika, relax, have a coffee, watch the moon and stars.
And you're leaving at 5 a.m.
Yeah, sometimes 3:30.
Wow.
And you land, then work like hell, because you can't stuff this job up. Because if you miss an ECG, you've got to go back and do it again. So it's actually full on when you're there. Then you get back in the plane, and then you fly to Fox Glacier on the autopilot relaxing, because you need to chill out. Now, the reason I'm saying this to you is I've often thought maybe I should get a helicopter. But that just wouldn't work, because I'm told you can't take your hands off the controls and you can't relax in a helicopter. So going between Hokitika and Fox, you'd be still on edge, and then you get to Fox exhausted and off you go again, so you get a lot more tired. So anyway, it's a unique plane. I've had it nearly 25 years. It's open checkbook with the AvTech. He helped me choose it. Neil Matheson from Aero Support. I don't care what it costs, just keep it going. And we have.
You're the perfect customer.
That's right, but you see, if you really want the perfect AvTech, you be his doctor as well.
Are you?
Oh yes, you stuff up my plane. No, but he's just awesome. He knows, and he's always looking for ways to improve it. And
So,
it's had
what
a
are some of the mods and features of the plane that you've set up?
Well, I think it's had a new engine. It's had a full midlife SIDS, and it's got full RMP avionics, not just the old VOR and NDB and DME. There's lots of things in there. I've got a whole selection of different rocks from my special places. And there's pictures of Mum and Mark and stuff on the roof, and so it's pretty. No one else flies it. Mark used to fly it. In fact, he flew it the day before he died, but no one else, because that is my workplace. Now, for me to go to Blenheim driving, probably 8 hours getting there by the time you farted around on the ferry, it's 1 hour, 10 minutes flying in the aeroplane. I've got to have that plane working. And so it's a very important workplace. So I always take off with preheated oil. I don't do rapid power changes. 50-hour checks, everything's changed.
Have you got an electric?
Yep. Got the
oil sump
Alaskan
heater?
system with the sump pad warmers.
And you've got a parachute
Yeah, you got a parachute.
and a parachute door.
Parachute door and a good dinghy.
You carry a dinghy or
yeah,
a life raft?
Real good life raft. And I've got, a really good life vest with egress in it, so it gives me 5 minutes of air. So if I crash, I've got goggles, 5 minutes of air, just relax, so I could get a crayfish before I come up.
You won't go hungry. And you've got pink stripes on the
Yeah, that
top.
was a guy, Ryan Moynihan, went missing. They still haven't found him. Somewhere around Haast. There's lots of theories where he might be, but I decided if I was going to go missing, I want every chance of this aircraft being found. So there's all this sort of stuff on the wings and on the tail fin just to be found. But look, I've got spider tracks. I've got in and out. I think I'll be found pretty quick. But
And you've left nothing to chance.
nothing to chance. I've had my commercial pilot license for nearly 35 years. I keep it current because in my head, even though I'm not a Part 135 or one of those professional things, I run it on private ops. In my head, it's a professional organisation. So everything's OSH checked here. I'm never behind on my checks. Always up to speed. Yeah.
In 2003, you received the Director's Award for Aviation Safety.
Yeah.
That must have been a proud moment.
Well, I've got to say, it was sort of a bit of a jack up. Because what I realised then, I was getting quite a bit of flack around the country at the time.
Who from?
Other doctors and pilots saying, "Oh, he's doing medicals from a boot," sort of stuff. Just nasty people. So when you're starting something new, this always happens. So
Because this was only a few years after you'd started the
That's right.
service, wasn't it?
And you start to, feel. Anyway, I needed legitimacy.
So you gave the director a call.
So no. What I did was I went. Neil, we got onto lots of people to write really good references about what a shit-hot guy I was, and a submission was put in, and I got the award. The Auckland Airport got the organisational one, and I got the individuals. The one thing I felt about Auckland Airport was that, we're sort of brothers. They give us free landing charges or something. Bloody bastards are just as mean as ever. I would have thought, we're sort of in it together, But anyway, it was great getting that. It was a great privilege getting it, because after that, no one complained anymore. No one seemed to badmouth us. Oh, Dave got the Director's Award.
But I'm sure even if it was a jack-up, I mean, they wouldn't have given that
No,
if
that's
they
right.
didn't believe
Absolutely,
in it.
absolutely, yeah. But I did need that legitimacy, and it was a big help, because I was trying my hardest. And when you get slagged doing something new, medicals from the boot and all this, well, they don't say that now. It's it's going pretty good.
So one of your passions is men's health. Why is it a passion?
Well, I think it's important to make a little qualification there. I'm labelled with men's health, but it's actually all health, men and women, and in between.
But you've written a book about men's health.
Well, no, Healthy Bastards is for men and women.
Women aren't bastards.
No, but I couldn't write Healthy Bitches, could I? Like, I got all sorts of people trying to sue me with Healthy Bastards, let alone try as Healthy Bitches. But what I found was, in general practice, I was dealing with a lot of people who didn't care about their health. In the aviation medicine, it blew me away, these 80 and 90-year-olds can jump in an air like a jackrabbit. And I thought, why don't the general practice people get it? You know, you can live a long, happy life if you took care of your body.
So you could actually see a difference between pilots and non-pilots.
Oh, it's massive. It's huge. It's huge.
Wow.
And I was burning a pretty worn-out trail to the mortuary at Palmerston North, signing off my patients in their early and middle age through health neglect. End of story. That's it. And I looked at the figures, and really, it seemed like the health department were really dealing with the do-gooders. They weren't getting to the real oil. You know, there's these flash pamphlets and stuff like that. But the average chippy couldn't give a shit about that. And often if they got a talk, the perception was it was Professor Bloodnut talking down to them. So I thought, why not try the non-PC line? And so I started a concept called Healthy Bastards. And I say to you, if you go down to one of the Rat Hole pub in Bulls, at the time, there were unhealthy women just like unhealthy men, but it sort of got pushed on the more on the men thing. But there's a lot of women who die early, and I went to the morgue and signed them off. So I purely started setting this up to try and improve health, and by communicating simple, good health messages. The test, I used to do talks initially in the prisons and stuff. And then I thought I need a manual, a book. So there's a really good guy who owned Pacific Wings at the time. I think he bought it off the guy McPherson. But anyway, I started writing a chapter in a book. In his magazine, I wrote an article in each monthly Pacific Wings. The proviso was simple. I owned the articles, and everyone was going to be a chapter in a book. So after 2 years, I had enough to publish a book for pilots, Fitness to Health, to Fly for Healthy Bastards. And then the idea came up. I think about 700 were sold. It was a great test case because most were bought by women for their men, and it seemed to go pretty well. You know, it was a bit rough. And so I thought, oh, well, I'll try and get it published with a big publisher. And I sent it off to 11 publishers. I Googled it. And I was concerned there'd be blood on the floor fighting for this, and I was trying to work out my contract price. Anyway, when everyone told me to fuck off, I thought, shit, I've got to try harder here. And fortunately, I had a contact in Random House. So I just got hold of the editor every week to say, look, have you had a rethink sort of stuff? And it's like a blowfly. And eventually, what got me that book called Healthy Bastards was Mike King was doing a talk in Winton, and apparently I was doing it with him. 600 men were enrolled. 3 weeks out, already posters were up. I had to pull out. The lady was so shit-faced, you know, and I don't blame her, you know, but I just could not physically get there with the practice and everything going. So anyway, when she went me, man. So anyway, when I put the phone down, I had the cat on my lap, like Dr. Evil, thinking, right, what do I do now, you know? And I thought, I'm going to ring the editor. I emailed the editor of Random House. I said, look, I just turned down 600 men with Mike King at Winton. You won't take my book. Anyway, a minute later, she said, no, we'll take it now.
Wow.
Yep. So then I wrote it all. within 2 weeks, redid the pictures, and just went out like that. Went out as a bestseller. It's great. And that became my medical manual for dingbats. And that led to my greatest creative experience. It was a revelation to me. And that was that 3 TV production companies approached me for a TV series along the same lines. They thought, shit, Dave's onto it. And one was a real big shot in Auckland. And they do all sorts of TV programs and series. And I was smart enough to get this contract because I was going to be like Michael Jackson. It was going to be good, and we'd go all around the country doing this stuff. Gave it to the lawyer, old John Freebarn, and he had a look at it, and $9,000, I think, the full review cost. And he got back and said, Dave, they will own you from now on. And I just saw red, because to me, my creativity, like a Panamu carver, like Bevan Climo, or a painter, is your creativity is the extension of your experience, your soul. How could you want to rein it in and try and control me? So anyway,
But you saw your message only working if you can tie in your creativity along.
That's right, and not. I want to, when I'm up on stage, and say this fucking thing. I don't want to be told, oh, don't say fuck anymore. Billy Connolly gets off on saying, people relate to that. And my target audience want to hear it from the street, They don't want to be talked down to. Nerves around there, and that's mainly to keep them protected. Like, you don't want to get a kick in the nuts and not know about it, eh? So if you do, normally it hurts really bad around it, it's sick, and it feels sick. Generally it recovers pretty quick, but it is very, very sore ankles. I believe so. Yeah. And so I don't want a minder saying, Dave, tone it down a bit. If people don't like what I want, oh, well, that's the end of it, and I'll go try something, I'll go fishing. But I'm still here 30 years later. And I did, 5 talks? I've done 5 talks in 9 days since today. And so if people want to hear me, so what I'm saying to you is that by freeing myself from that TV series, I took a big hit. But I'm still, I learnt so much. I saw how these amazing bands get sucked up by production companies and they break up a year later. Why? Because their creativity's gone. Or painters are told to paint the same shit, Everyone needs to be set free, eh? So it was an amazing experience, actually. Yeah.
Do you ever feel your creativity goes a bit far and people just can't take the non-PC stuff? Or do you feel like you go too much?
Yeah. And look, yeah, absolutely. I've definitely got the wrong audiences sometimes. I'll tell you one of the dodgiest, this is no bullshit, is that about 20, 25 years ago, I was asked to go down to Southland. I won't say what town it was. And it was all these bush pilots. We want you down at the pub and we want a really rough, talk. I said, I'll be there. So anyway, I whizzed on down there and it turned out, and I had a really rough talk. Bill Black was there, it was great. A lot of the so-called bush pilots actually were pretty upper crust farmers with pretty poncy wives. And they weren't geared for my talk. Anyway, I gave it to them, both barrels. Now, half were stony-faced and half thought it was a great talk. Now, what I'm saying to you is that Sandy was not happy with me.
Was she there? Was she shrinking away
She
into the
was
corner?
not happy, but it wasn't my fault. I was lured down there, and I didn't realise that a lot of these guys were different around their wives than with their mates, and I was lured down there for them. So anyway, I didn't mean to get it wrong, but I did.
So you learned to eat less.
I gave them, but I still gave them both barrels.
So do you think after 20 or 30 years the message is getting through? Have you seen a difference in the people you deal with.
Yeah, it's a very good point, actually, because the only comment I can say is I think the profile of what I'm doing is going up. But, you know, there's wonderful people like Mike King, Dr. Tom Mulholland, who unfortunately committed suicide before Christmas. There's a number of people trying it, and it's awesome. So no one's got the answer, but everyone's just on the same, pushing the same barrow. Let's do our best, because if you save one life, you know, that's a father, isn't it? You know, or a mother, or so. Look, it's. But for me, my philosophy in my flying doctor service and in the medical centre and here in the Healthy Bastards is I really don't have an effective way of business analysis, working it out. But so I go by the rule. There's a great author, who wrote, I think, the Jack Reacher books or something. But I heard him speaking on the national program, and he said to him life was like a baseball game, and he kept hitting. He never looked at the score. And that's what I do.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it was a great way. You know,
if you believe in what you're doing enough,
yeah,
it doesn't matter because I believe in it.
Absolutely. So I don't know. Like when I went to the Te Rauparaha Centre last year, and I don't know, there's 800, 1,000 people there. I did their boxing doctor. I didn't get paid for that, but I got a couple of minutes in the ring to give them all a talk about the Healthy Bastards. Hey, all of you healthy bastards out there. Now, I don't know how effective that was, but what was awesome about it was when I spoke about the 3 principles of good health. Number 1, your machine, take care of the fucking thing. That's what you tell them. They love it. Number 2, mental health. There's an epidemic of suicide. Now, I didn't see it, but Sandy said, boom, half of them stood up and went like that. Fuck, it was worth going down there just for that, wasn't it? You know, these were all sorts of people from all sorts of backgrounds in Poirua, and then to push the mental, spiritual thing. So I can never gauge how successful that was in the Te Rauparaha Centre, but quite often I go places and people just go like that. They just thumbs up. So somehow I've touched them. But, you know, so some go like this. Or one guy, I tell you, this is no bullshit. One guy, when I first started on Bulls, he was actually an old a radio operator who'd been a swordfish, and he was in one of the swordfish of the Royal Navy that destroyed the Italian Navy, and he had only one eye. And anyway, when I first saw him, I said, "You've got a big cancer in your rectum. You've got to get it sorted." And he just looked at me with that one eye and said, "Fuck off." All right. Anyway, the prick lived for 13 years. And so I'd go up the street and he'd be across the other side saying, "I'm still alive, you prick." It's a bit like I mentioned in that health, in the Flying Doctor book, there's this awesome guy. I thought he was fucked, but he wasn't. And he had this beautiful set of Scorsese binoculars. And I said, "Look, I tell you what, Mike, if you give me those binos, I'll treat you for free." I didn't think he'd last long. 10 years later, the prick's still alive. He laughs every time I see him. "I'm still alive." Anyway, yep. But laughter's the best medicine.
Yeah.
So really what I'm saying is exhibiting. It is. You know, laughter is the best medicine.
In 2022, you did an interview with Sean Plunkett on the national program, I think.
Yeah.
And you made some interesting comments. One of them was that men are less healthy than women by an average of about 5 years, but there's no biological reason why that is.
Absolutely. That's just a fact.
So what does that mean? It just means we don't care about the machine?
No, if they want to become an alpha male at a rest home, they've got to up their act. It's just simple. They are risk takers. They don't take care of their health as well as they should. Even though getting back to original, they are changing. There is a change, which is great.
Another thing you said is that the body is a machine and needs to be taken care of like your Ford Ranger, and that we should do a risk analysis on our body, which I'd actually never heard of before.
Yeah, well, there are statistics around and tables to show what your risk of getting a heart attack or a stroke are. But it's bigger than that. It's bigger than that. Like, I've just recently been at a big conference down south, and they were saying that, look, 50% of people who have heart attacks and maybe even die have no risk factors at all. So it's, looking at the risk factor charts, but if you're not on it, just remember you're still there.
Yeah.
And family history is very important. Eat well, exercise. Exercise is good.
So you're saying people should go to a doctor to do
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
Because
yeah.
another thing I think you mentioned is get a good GP that you trust and go regularly.
Absolutely. And that is difficult with the shortage, but it's not an excuse. See, like at Bulls there, people are always whining on, I can't get to see you. But in actual fact, a week down the track, there's spare appointments there. But if you want to be seen right now and you've got a pimple on your ass, well, someone can, you don't have to be me to fix it, eh? But, you can find a GP. And the beauty of general practice is there's generally someone who suit your mad personality. You might be, like, when I started at Bulls, man, I had this whole community, and I knew a lot of the people there found it difficult tolerating me. But now there's lots of doctors there, and they prefer other ones, and I just love it, because I just want to practice the way I am, and I don't want to change, but I know I don't suit everyone, and I don't mean to hurt them, but, like one lady there, I say to her, look, I tell you what, there's going to be fucking trouble here with that one. She'd say, oh, God, I wish you wouldn't swear. And I say, I try fucking not to, I tell you what is interesting. In the dunny there is a metal plate, which is an excerpt from the New Zealand Doctor magazine. They rang us up about a couple of years ago, and they must have been interviewing a few people who've been around for a while in New Zealand. So there was a bit in the page, and there's lots of silly questions like, what was your favourite food? If you weren't a doctor, what would have you been, and stuff. And then there was one, what's your favourite word? So I said, well, fuck. And they said, well, we can't publish that. And I said, why'd you fucking ask me then? And then I said, look, why don't you put, because this is true, I'm a man of the street. I've always loved that word. Why don't you put FU*K in brackets, and it's Billy Connolly's favourite word? And they did.
Oh.
It's awesome. So now, it's in writing, isn't it?
One other thing you said is that men who have a loving partner live a lot longer, and that's a fact.
Absolutely. But they don't have to be men, woman, 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 men. To find a soulmate is a big deal. And look, I love quoting a guy, I think it's actually a pseudonym, John Eliot. I think it was actually, I don't think that, there's an author who is or a pseudonym for John Eliot, who wrote, one of the great miracles of life is two souls uniting in this sort of mad world and doing it together.
But the fact that affects your longevity,
that's right,
is quite amazing, isn't
Absolutely.
it? And your
Absolutely.
health.
Time and time again, old dad's got something wrong, and in comes with his minder, the partner, but then it changes. Like, I've seen guys a bit fucked with cancer, and mum's always helping out. She gets something. Suddenly he picks up his act and forgets about his whining, his cancer, and she needs him. And this couple, I had one awesome couple once. They'd been together 63 years, and the love was so great. At her funeral, he dropped dead. Wow. And everyone put him in the box.
Wow, that's amazing.
It is awesome, man. What a tribute to a positive side of life. But yeah, my understanding is they live longer. Yeah.
2009, you had radio campaign for your Healthy Bastards program,
Mm.
and someone made a complaint because they didn't like the use of the word bastard.
Yeah, it was a group of people apparently, and they all did a complaint to the Advertising Standards Authority. I had a song, it's on the internet, the Healthy Bastards song, and so, but I spent many thousands of dollars advertising on ZB or all these radio stations, and it would go, "Are you a healthy bastard? The doctor wants to know." Anyway, old do-gooder mum would be heading off to school, cuffing the kid for swearing, and then, "Are you a healthy bastard?" on the radio. Anyway, the people in charge of it said, "Look, we've had a complaint from the Advertising Standard Authority, but we'll handle it." I said, "No, you fucking won't, mate. Any complaint against me, I sort with my lawyer I know and trust." So I got the complaint and I gave it to John and Liam, and what a great reply. You know, they went back to I think the 1868 Bastardry Act. You know, it was the most eloquent reply. And anyway, we won it. But then they appealed and we won that. And then I got a bit of a write-up in the Sunday Star Times. The Advertising Authority said, "Look, leave him alone, everyone. He's just trying to do good work. Leave him alone." And the other thing that helped me too, because there's still a few whiners around, was I got a appointment with Tony Ryle, the health minister, and that was a big deal. I got in there, he didn't really know what I was on about. Anyway, he went on his wheelie chair, he's quite a hoot actually, I liked him, right up to my face. He said, "So what organisation do you represent?" So I touched his nose with my nose and I said, "You're looking at the first world president of the International Healthy Bastards Club." Anyway, he went whizzing back on his chair. And then he said, "Oh, I'm not going to be killed here." So he went whizzing right up to my nose again. He said, "You want some money, don't you?" He did. And so I went right up to his nose and I said, "No, I don't want your money. I want a picture." "He wants a picture." And he screamed at the secretary, get the camera." Anyway, it took 6 shots with the Healthy Bastards book to get him to thumbs up. Haven't had a complaint since. As soon as I get one, I flick him a picture of me and the health minister. That's it. I didn't want his money. I wanted a picture.
Nice.
So it goes back to the CAA thing. It's legitimacy.
Mm.
You know, you always start random. Like Helen Clark used to be a protester. Then she became Prime Minister. She was drawn in, wasn't she? I don't know if that's a good analogy, but when you start something new, it's always, bullshit, Then after a while, hey, that's pretty cool, when it becomes, so.
And then there was one more we were talking about at lunch where a board member of the Otago DHB complained because she had a problem with one of your cartoons.
Right. No, it was the chapter in the book. In the Healthy Bastards, there's a chapter called Food and Fat Bastards. Mm. Now, in fact, it's important to make a straight-out point here. If people are overweight, it's terrible and their self-esteem is low. So in no way do I want to affect individuals. I was just trying to get across in the chapter, we're one of the fattest countries in the world and it has massive implications, economically, everything. But anyway, she took a snitcher. And I didn't know it, but she did an article in this big shot in the university, this person was, and a lawyer, but it did a big whine in the Otago Daily Times about what a terrible thing I'd done in this chapter, and it was equivalent to the way the Nazis behaved to the Jews, the way overweight people were being treated. So anyway, but then the Otago Daily Times approached me. I think they must have she must have wound them up, and they begged me for a reply. Can you do one? I said, all right then. So in that scenario, I'm not in that. I know my skill level, and I'm not as eloquent as someone like this big shot university expert. So I got this mate of mine who's a QC, a Jewish QC, to reply on my behalf, especially with the reference to the Nazis. Mm-hmm. And these people create word pictures. And it was just beautiful. And the Otago Daily Times thanked me dearly. It did this big reply, and that shut her up. Anyway. Good stuff. Yeah, you got to surround yourself with good friends, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
2012 wasn't a good year for your family. Your mum died,
Yep.
and not long after that, Mark
About 5
took his
weeks.
life.
Yep.
Can you talk us through what happened there and
Well,
what a terrible
it's interesting. Mark worked very, very hard. We had a great team here, mate. He had a Hughes 500 here, which was his dream. He had a caravan rating, 1,500 hours. We did black belt gradings together. We hunted together. He had a beautiful girlfriend. Everything was going well, but we worked really hard. Mum died, and I actually didn't realise how close they were. Mum was often up all night, and he'd go down there at 3 a.m. and have breakfast with her and stuff. So it did affect him. But when he spoke at a funeral, he was awesome. I'm the howly bag one, and that's just the way I am. But yes, 5 weeks later, Friday afternoon, the cops turned up at Bulls and said, Mark's dead. I said, oh, fucking 500. You know what I mean? No, he shot himself. I said, what? So anyway, I actually couldn't cry till 11 at night. I said, what? And my practice partner came in. I said, Mark's just shot himself. And, Ken's a real tough Scotsman. He went as pale as a sheet. What? And anyway, I said to the bloody cop, well, can you drive me to the hangar? He said, no, you won't want to go there. I said, he's my son, mate, So he drove me here, and his body had just gone, but there were lots of cops and stuff here. And there's a lot of blood and stuff up there. And anyway, I said, take me to the morgue. You won't want to go there. I said, he's my fucking son, I'll walk. So he took us there. So I spent an hour with Mark in the morgue there, and, he put the old 270 in here, and so, But I cherish that time I spent with him because, I only had two overriding feelings, and one of them was, Mark, I could have done this, mate. I used to, high-achieving young men get black moments. And I can remember dark times, where you're trying to get into med school. No bird wants to go out with you. They all think you're a bit of a wanker, and I always believed in myself, but it doesn't take much to suddenly have a cup that's 5% empty and not 95% full, eh? So, my feeling with Mark is, Mark, fuck, I could have done this too, mate, and I swore I'd rebuild. I wouldn't run.
In those first hours or days, you must have had a lot of confusion about why you did it.
That's right. The first thing I wanted to know was something, had he been, was bad stuff happened, Was there anything bad? And there didn't seem to be. The police were wonderful, very good. And they checked all his cell phones, a whole lot. And he had so many friends, he had enemies like everyone else, but no,
And you've dealt with so many mentally ill people. Nothing had twigged to you that there was something going on with him at all?
No, not a thing.
I think you said in your book that wasn't a scenario that you had ever thought of.
No, I hadn't. Like one day, the Chinese might invade, and could be a nuclear war, but never in the scorecard had been that. Never. Absolutely never. No.
He left no note.
No, but I keep looking.
Do you wish he had left one?
Well, in actual fact, it's interesting you should say that. He did leave something. Is that he left... there's a couple of things I've surmised since. Number one is he did it here, and I love that because he did it in a safe place, not on a park bench. He did it. We both built this place. It was safe. You know what I mean? That's the way I see it, anyway. This is our special place. I actually don't ever feel he's gone. Actually, secondly, whatever made it go dark, he was out of here because he knew guns. He was a very good shot. So he was out of here. He did not want to be here. But on the whiteboard, he wrote up there, died a good bastard. So something tipped him, but within him he knew he was good, but something got too much. And I don't know what that is. And I certainly vowed that I would not make it a life's mission to find out. If someone rang him that day and gave him a bollocking, well, I don't give a fuck. We get that all day. And I don't want anyone to have any bad karma, because I've seen families pulled apart.
And you can't turn it back now, can you?
Well, that's right. But in a scenario of crisis, someone needs to be strong. You know, I bawled my eyes out and shit like that at the funeral and all that. But you need to be strong and to lead, and everyone comes in behind you. That's why this place is so cool. Often I'm here by myself, you know. So, you know, bloody... The one thing I do find interesting along those lines, because it never seems to finish, is that if you have some concept of beyond the material world, and I often ask people who've had loved ones die, have you ever experienced them after the death? Like, for example, and a lot of people have. You know, it's a great privilege being a doctor because of the conversations you have with people. Like I spoke at Margaret Hamlin's funeral a couple of months ago and said that, in context, that Margaret and I had a pretty good spiritual bond. She loved Mark, you know, and she would say every now and again, I'd say to her, anything strange happen? And I actually said at the funeral, she said, oh, yes, my mother and two aunties, who'd been died many, many years, were on the settee in my house. I said, well, what'd you do? She said to them, I went up to them and I said, it's not my time, will you piss off? I said, well, what happened? She said, they got up and they walked out the wall. And I said to everyone at the funeral, I didn't even flinch as I was checking her blood pressure. I just thought, this is the people of Bulls and Rongotia. Now, Mark, there's always something good and something bad. Because he maimed himself, there's blood everywhere. And for a month, I put up with the stink of his drying blood. It was like a curse. But anyway, it all disappeared in the end. But I remember about 3 or 4 years later, I came in here on Friday night and I was absolutely buggered and really looking forward to getting home to have a powwow with Sandy. I came in here and boom, I got struck in the dark. I hadn't found the light at this point, with the sensation of that smell of that rotten blood. And I knew straight away this was not normal. And it was almost like a signature. And 10 minutes later, it totally went. Now, of all the people I'd asked about experience of their loved ones after they died, no one had ever said smell. But the following week, a guy, John Clare, turned up here for a medical, and his sister had died. And I said, well, have you ever perceived her presence? Yep. And I said, how do you do that? And he said, smell. I said, what? You know, it was just so random. I said, how do you mean the fucking smell? He said, yeah, I remember the smell of her perfume. And I smell it every now and again. So I just find it, again, I'm not making stuff up, and I can't say what's right or wrong, but it's an amazing journey, isn't it? You know, and it's amazing what people say when you talk to them.
Mm. Something you said, which I found interesting, when you went to the morgue to see him, you said, I was just so happy to see him there.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
What did you mean by that?
Well, I didn't want him to be alone. Fuck that. You know, like bloody, you know, he broke his back once in a helicopter accident. You know, I couldn't get up to New Plymouth Hospital quick enough. You know, like, you know, he was actually in the last couple of years my minder, because I'm always in trouble. But fuck, you touch him, man. You know, so I needed to be there. You know, And then I felt good, you know, and I knew the cops there as well. And Kendrick, who I'm speaking at his book launching, he was doing the post-mortem, so I felt safe, you know what I mean? And I loved Kendrick because him and actually Bruce got my brother's body when he was killed in a helicopter accident. And you just know they're safe, you know, with friends, you know, it was great. And the coroner was very good too. They released the body pretty quick. It was great.
And you go to see him, like you said, every week?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Well, we used to have business meetings every week. So that's where I sort of plan out the week. And, you know, I love the fellowship there. You meet all sorts of great
Do you
people.
talk to him?
Shit, yeah. You know, bloody, you know, there's a great guy. Yeah, all the time. There's a real fellowship there of people. But
If he could be here today, sitting where I am for just 2 minutes, what would you say to him now?
too hard. Too hard. No, I couldn't answer that question. Too hard. But Sandy made a very good point. When someone said to her, oh, such and such will open an old wound. She said, I never want the wound to close, actually. This is
Because
part
that
of the
might
journey.
mean she doesn't want to forget him, obviously.
That's
or
right. He's part of our lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
And you want him to always be part of
Yeah,
your lives.
I never feel lonely. I've never really been scared of the dark or shit like that, but I remember going to that cemetery once because it fitted in, coming back on the fair at 12 o'clock midnight. And as I was scrubbing up the grave, I saw the full moon and the clouds whistling past and the whistling and funny sounds. And I thought, fuck, you know, I wouldn't have been here when I was younger, but I just didn't care. You know what I mean? You have a oneness. You change in the way you think, you know?
On that Sean Plunkett interview, you spoke about suicide, and you said that you know, it's an extremely complicated issue.
Why do so many of us fail to keep our heads straight?
Well, it's very complex. You can't, like, if people are depressed, then they're high risk.
And, you know, we've got a suicide pandemic in this country and in the Western world. And you mentioned Tom Mulholland. You know, he was in his 60s, I think, mental health advocate. Is it possible to break down what's going on?
Yeah, I think it's the most important thing is for everyone to realise, no matter how good they feel or the scenario they live in, that they have a cracking point. The dangerous ones are the ones who say, oh, I'd never do it, and that was a weak person. Everyone has a cracking point. So if that's the case, you just then have to approach it from a sort of almost an aviation point of view. What's my checklist? If I start going dark, what do I do? You know what I mean? Like, I remember getting the odd dark moment, and you go down to the Fitz and have a beer, maybe pick a fight with someone. No, but you know, you get out of it. You know, get around people. Having someone to ring or know, you know, makes a difference.
So as an example, as someone who has a very busy and often stressful lifestyle, what do you personally do to stop going down that track in your own life?
I think having a soulmate makes a big difference. You know, I can confide in Sandy. I always feel safe, and she's always there for us. Doesn't matter where I am. That's what's important.
Because another thing you said in that is it's not about talking up resilience, how tough you are.
No.
Which is what we do often, isn't it?
That's right, absolutely. You know, you be who you are and recognise that, look, you have that ability. Well, I was with Tom for a full day, 2 weeks before he did it, you know, and I just love talking to Tom.
So he must have known this stuff. I mean, how do we know what our breaking point is if someone like Tom doesn't?
Yeah. No, he does. He would have known. But, you know, he may well have had life's issues that I didn't know about. And that makes you more vulnerable. Maybe, you know, he'd had an argument with someone and it all goes dark. I don't know. All I know is that you'd think he'd have the checklist mechanisms, but I'm not perfect either. You know, I may top myself one day. You know, like everyone's got it. And if you recognise that, then, right, well, I'm lucky I've got a soulmate and I feel I can tell my wife anything. And I do. But she's always there for us. But one day she mightn't be. So all I can do is, I've got your cell phone number. I ring you every 5 minutes.
You can ring me whenever you want.
Yes, whether you answer your prick. So I think, but the difficulty is with suicide is that, you know, there are people more at risk than others. Obviously, if there's mental health issues, depression, alcohol and drugs, bad contacts.
And one thing as you get older, I realise that when I feel down, it doesn't last forever. Normally you get up in the morning and you're feeling better again.
Well, you know, like the Zen masters and stuff, so try and get you to realise that the birds are still singing, the wind's still going through the trees, the problem's in your head. But it's easy to say if you're not a Zen master.
Yeah.
And I bet there's been the odd Zen master that's topped himself too, you know.
Also, we seem terrified in New Zealand to even mention the word suicide in public because maybe it will make other people think about it. But I don't know, it seems to me like, you know, we're hiding the issue and maybe we should be talking about it more openly.
Yeah, well, I think we certainly are now. Like I've got a picture of a young girl up there at Mark's Shrine, and that girl committed suicide at 16. Now, I got onto that picture because it was a senior pilot. So, you know, a few years after Mark died, and I turned around and he was bawling his eyes out. And I said, "You haven't even got the bill yet. What's going on?" You know, I had no idea. He said, "I envy you." And I said, "Why?" He said, "About Mark." I said, "What are you fucking talking about?" He said, "I envy you because you know Mark, you buried him, and you know, sort of how it might have happened, sort of stuff." Well, when I was about 8 or 9, my sister committed suicide. The parents cremated her. I don't know where she is. And they never, ever talked about it. So it's certainly happened in my younger days.
Yeah.
And it's talked about a lot more now, which is great.
After all you've been through and what you now know, what advice would you give to parents who maybe have a teenage child about how to deal with this, especially if they feel like their child may be contemplating this? Is there generalizations to talk about?
Yeah. I think the key thing is the relationship with your kids, you know, to develop a loving and trusting relationship with communication angles, if you can. That's not to say, you know, the difficulty for us is we thought we had everything with Mark, but we obviously something was missing. But I think probably after Mark died, and if there is such a thing as a spiritual thing, when he headed off, he would have thought, fuck, what have I done? And the reason I say that is I managed to get hold of the scientific article of the people who jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge and survived. These were case studies. And bizarrely, the first one was a guy called Baldwin. And he was 27. And he said, everything was wrong. No money, the girlfriend left me, I had no future. My life was bugging, I'm out of here. So he said he jumped. And the moment he jumped, just like the moment Mark pulled the trigger, he said everything stopped and every problem went in front of him. And he realised as he went through them, every problem, everything was fixable except this.
Wow.
And so he then put himself in a position he could have survived, and he did. Now, when you put a 270 in your mouth, you're not coming back, mate. So I think in the end, if Mark had somehow had that ability to come back, he would have, just like that other guy. But that's, I'm only just trying to answer your question.
That's a powerful story, though.
It is a very powerful story. What is even more powerful is a follow-on series of papers of people who actually did die. And one of them was a lady who left her house and said, when I'm walking to the Golden Gate Bridge, she put this on social media just before she jumped, if just one person smiles to me, I won't jump. No one smiles, so she jumped. That's a terrible indictment on society, isn't it? It's a terrible indictment. So in the end, my advice to rallies is forming the relationships, keeping your kids safe in the society where, drugs are rampant. There's not the disciplinary issues, there's no discipline anymore. There's no consequence. Keep your kids in tight and safe if you can. And just do your best.
Yeah, that's all you can do.
That's right. And if it doesn't work, you tried, mate. Just like we did.
Spirituality is something you talk about a lot now, a lot more than you used to, I think. Is it something that's becoming a bigger part of your life?
Absolutely.
Why do you think it is? Is it, first question, is it more so since Mark died?
No, I think no. Whether Mark died or not. You see, the way I've looked at it is, I've always had a spiritual focus. I've always struggled what pathway to follow. Religion's to me just the pathway you follow, whether it's Islam or Christianity or Judaism or Hindu. I've always struggled which pathway, but I'm constantly trying to develop myself on the spiritual line. And the way I see it is that, I practice 10 or 15 minutes every day martial arts. I'm not doing that. You get better with time. I'm not Bruce Lee or anything, but you don't suddenly get good by reading a book, do you? You've got to practice. Well, I find with spirituality now, and I have for a long, long time, that you need to sort of develop some set of rules, pathways, and develop it and practice it similar to gymnastics or boxing or something. So along the line I've got now, which is basically Judeo-Christian, I'd say, I know I'm getting better. I know I'm deeper than last year. And
so this isn't something that's evolving all the time for you.
It's always
you're
evolving.
Learning what it means.
No, it's I next year I know I'll be better than this year.
But what does being better mean?
Well, it's deeper in the sense that, like, for example, what I love about, for example, the Jewish way of thinking, if they have the midrash where you say things, but before you move on, you have to think something new. So, like, say, for example, if you say some particular bit of scripture or something that you like, you say one bit, but don't move on to something else until there's something new's come out of it. And it does come. And so after a period of time, it gets deeper and deeper, but it's only a personal thing.
So is spirituality for you something about God or more about yourself? I mean, I was brought up in a Christian family, and spirituality was always to do with God. But really that's religion, isn't it? What does spirituality mean for you? Is it anything to do with God or just finding who you are?
Yeah, no, I'm not really interested in finding who I am, because I'm real happy with who I am. I'm real happy. And then where I'm very grateful is I always have. I know I've been a wanker from here and there and done this and that, but I've never thought I'm a nutter or,
Well, you are a bit mad.
Yeah, but I've loved it, and I've loved it when I've made a mistake because I've learnt from it. sort of stuff. But
Well,
I'm
I've-
absolutely adamant, to sort of answer your question, in my mind, there is something beyond the material world. Now, I don't say God, because that immediately creates the image of some old bastard on a cloud flicking off thunderbolts. I love the definitions of, like, all the great sages have struggled with it. Meister Eckhart's, all he said was, beyond the material world, and whatever it is, it's the isness of is with limitations. It just is. We come and go. The limitations are our ability to understand it. And that's what I'm trying to reduce, the limitations. But whatever happens within the context of this beyond the material world divinity, I think it's surrounded by goodness, honesty, and the 6 words of treat your fellow man as yourself. Now, I say man to include all genders. I'm talking about humanity. I'm just saying those are what the great sages say. And it's not just Yeshua or Hillel the Elder, the great rabbi, or the Buddha. They all say it. Treat your fellow man as yourself and, make love, not war. It's all over. It's so simple, eh?
Something you wrote is that the only way that I can personally repay the big guy in the sky for this privilege is by trying to be a good boy and a follower of the way.
That's right.
Not easy when one is naturally bad to the bone.
I know. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's nothing else to say, is there?
Yeah.
But in the end, I love the search. Like, we've been to Israel 4 times. To stand on the Temple Mount, and there's the Al-Aqsa Mosque, there's the Holy Sepulchre, the Wailing Wall, the Golden Temple. Well, we went to Athens and Rome in January. We've stood on, in Corinth and Areopagus, where, and actually the place that I've stood that meant the most to us was actually Mount Nebo in Jordan. And that's where Moses, who was who's a cornerstone in Islam, Christianity and Islam, that's where he stood, saying basically all of Deuteronomy. So, it's not a fairy tale anymore. It's real. Now, what will be next year? I don't know, but I find it a great journey. And look, if people don't think there's anything to it, I don't care. You do what you bloody like.
But I think you do care because you've written a whole book about it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're telling people it's important, so you must care.
Oh, absolutely. I care, but I understand if people don't, because it's their journey and they've got to nut themselves out. We're all special people and we're all stardust. And I can't answer so many questions. I can't even answer the basic question of the Healthy Bastards campaign. Why was I actually born? Because I don't remember putting up a nomination for New Zealand to be born in the body of a middle white class male. Even more, I was born without an instruction manual. So I've got to struggle through all this stuff. So hopefully through the Healthy Bastards campaign, we can help people. Hey, we'll see.
You've seen a lot of death, more than most. And most of us are desperate to avoid death, but you've said you're not afraid of it.
No. I've seen some beautiful deaths, like, wow, look, there's nothing worse than going to a car accident and the traumas and the stuff like that.
And you wrote that some of the best times you've spent with family members have been just after they've died.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And you just said you've seen some beautiful deaths.
Oh, yeah.
What's so beautiful about it to you?
Well, firstly, it's a leveler. Like in a more nasty version, was in that monastery I was talking about with 4,000 skulls. On one of them, there's a skull, and it says, "Read well, pilgrim. I was once like you, and one day you will be like me."
Charming.
bloody skull in a pile, shit. But when that moment happens of passing away, you know, it's just a privilege to be there, you know, knowing that sooner or later we will be in that vulnerable spot too. Where does it go? Well, I don't know. But I just feel it's just a privilege. And so I'm hoping in my next life, if there is such a thing, I don't know, I want to come back as a doctor.
As a what, sorry?
A doctor. Yeah, the one iconic figure that I do read about and really love is a guy from 1,000 years ago called Maimonides. It was a very important Jewish sage, and he was a physician. And a lot of his insights, I'm sure, came from being a physician. Because people give you the insights. You know, there's a wisdom in the street, you know. There's a wisdom in the street, and you have to just listen to it. So, and learn from it too, actually, and be humble by it. So.
Writing's a big part of your life now. You've
Yeah,
written 4 books, I think.
I'm on my 7th. Yeah.
Okay, 6 coming on 7, plus a lot of articles.
Yeah.
What do you love about writing?
I think it's using that right brain. It's interesting that I struggled with English. You know, maybe dyslexia is probably the wrong word for it, but I wasn't very good at reading and writing. But you know, I know I'm good at it, but I needed to develop confidence, and a few things have helped me. Barry Crump, his motto was, if you're going to write a book, just start writing the bloody thing. Don't think about it. And it's amazing how things come into your head. He also said, and this comes actually from Dennis Nyon, a good mate of mine, who was a good mate of Barry's. He used to drink with him. And Barry said to him, if you're going to write, just write as if you're talking to your best mate. Don't turn it into a bloody carry-on. The other thing I learned, because I have struggled with commas and full stops, was that when I did the Healthy Bastards book, the Bushman's Bible book, which was self-published using my mother's publishing company, which I inherited, I thought, right, I'll write this book. So I wrote it. And then I got one of the top editors in Auckland to edit it, Nicola McCall. And I met her in the Novotel at the airport, had lunch, and I said, thank you so much for doing this for us, Nicole. You know, really, really appreciate it. You're going to find that you'll think, oh, what's this, you know? And anyway, I said, I was chewing on my steak. Nicole, how many books have you written? She said, none. I said, I'm wasting my money here. I said, what do you mean you've never written a book? She said, you don't get it, do you, Dave? You don't get it. I want to write a book. I haven't got anything to write about. You've got the story. I'm the wordsmith. I will shine it up for you. But I envy you. You've got the story, and fuck, that gave me confidence. I got lots of stories, you know what I mean?
Are you writing for yourself or for others? Why do you actually write?
Well, I think part of it is, you know, the creativity side of it, but I really want to get my Bushman's Bible into, well, I've got it in over 2,000 mountain huts, but I want to get it out there. I'd love to get it in the bookshops, but the mafia publishers won't allow me to do it. You see, the way it worked was that I got the Flying Doctor book that you're getting some of these quotes from, and Healthy Bastards. They became in every bookshop because a big publisher, Random House Penguin, did it. They were in with Whitcoulls, Paper Plus, boom, guaranteed orders. So when I did the Bushman's Bible, I got hold of one of the big shop book chains. Said, look, I've got an account with you. Why don't you buy 1,000 books and put them in your bloody thing? No, we don't do small-time writers. So how can, you know, J.K. Rowling get out there? How many J.K. Rowlings are in bloody New Zealand, eh? And I know Ernest Hemingway went to about 20 bloody publishers. So I thought I'd use all my strengths, which are chopper pilots, trampers, hunters. That's why I push the Bushman's Bible in all these huts. And people steal them, some buy them, but whatever happens, they're in these huts. Now, to further promote that good health thing, I've been so fortunate that the New Zealand Outdoor give me 6 pages in every edition on the same line, the journey of the Bushman's Bible. This next week it's the Dart River. This week it's Doubtful Sound. The week, I've done, 33 articles. Every one is now developing a following. I did a medical on someone in Wairarapa last week, and they said, "Oh, I read you in the New Zealand Outdoor. It's great."
And they're great stories because while you're telling the story about the Bushman's Bible, you're also weaving stories of people and history.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting.
And I learned so much. Like the one on Doubtful Sound, there's a place called, I call it Doubtful Sound in Campbell's Kingdom, which is very famous there. It's a paradise. And so I did photo, tied it up in the article. And then I started ringing people, why is it called Campbell's Kingdom? And no one knew. So I rang all the old hunters and people. No one knew why that was called Campbell's Kingdom, and it's not on the map as Campbell's Kingdom. So what I did was, in the article, I just called it Campbell's Kingdom, and I decided to name it after a guy called Wilson Campbell. I spoke to his son, actually. He didn't reckon it was tied up with him, but he contributed hugely to the Te Anau community, and so it's highly likely it was named after him. So, so what, in many ways, the writing is to promote the good health angle, and particularly this. So maybe one day the big shots, Whitcoulls, Paper Plus will see the light, because if the book's there, people buy it, but they just won't put it.
Have you got your books into Ruth Shaw's little bookshops in
Yeah,
Manapuri?
she took some. I was very grateful. I tell you, one of the biggest hits I've ever taken, and it still upsets me, is that I got an order from a Paper Plus, and I was so grateful for it. I went in just to see the owner, and I said, "Thank you so much for buying those 5 books." She said, "Actually, I'm sending them back. I don't think it's good enough."
Don't think what's good enough?
The book. It was like a spike. Why didn't she burn them? You know what I mean? It was such a horrible thing to say, but the next day, someone ordered 300. Fucker. You know what I mean? It was such a horrible thing to do. But, I don't wake up screaming, Paper Plus or whatever. But it was just to do that, to create a person, is a horrible thing. If you think it's bad, well, that's your eyes that say that. But don't cut them off at the knees at the vulnerable time when they're trying to get it out there, eh? So anyway, you just roll with that. Just like I've just had one crowd with 28,000 workers approach us, say, "Oh, we quite like your Healthy Bastards campaign. Maybe we might get involved with it, eh?" Well, I'm not getting worked up about it because I've taken so many hits. I said, "Oh, it'd be great." So I've sent them some free books. Now, it's highly unlikely they'll take it because they're a very PC organisation. But maybe they're desperate to get out of that bullshit, and my book will help. Now, if it did, it would really make a difference and create an income stream from a charitable trust. If it doesn't, it's going to happen sooner or later, so I'll just wait.
I've got a couple of last questions for you. Are there any legends or characters or mentors, aviation or not, in your life that have meant a lot to you?
Absolutely.
Who would be one or two?
Well, definitely.
Apart from myself.
That's right. Definitely my mother. Definitely Dave Saxton. They were very, very similar people. In the mountains, they merged with the bush. Mum used to yodel and she could sound like a tui, and when I'd go looking for a Panamo with Dave Saxton. But in the civilised world, they just weren't up to it. They weren't, but in the bush, they inspired me,
Because the bush and the mountains are such a big part of who you are, aren't they?
Well, I think they are, and it's probably the main topic of my new book, which is registered already with ICAO or whoever it is, the spirituality of the wilderness, because the reality is most spiritual pathways began in the wilderness. Muhammad, peace be upon him, in the Hira cave. Moshe and Yeshua, 40 days, 40 nights, days in the desert. They all started there, So, we all love it because of the silence, the beauty, the transcendence, and the freedom. You get closer to the city, you get a bloody speeding ticket. You know what I mean? It all, and you've got to have it. But that's where you start. It all starts constricting in, Yeah, but I think those two, but there are many others. I love Dick Deaker because at 80 years of age, he's still a live wire and a true free spirit. Hunters, it's a tough one without having actually thought about it. But there are a lot of people. But, yeah.
We hear a lot about the broken medical system in New Zealand, and you've mentioned it a few times in some of your emails. If you were the Minister of Health, what would you do to change it? Is it able to be changed?
Well, I
or
think,
has it gone too far that there's
no,
no easy
it's
fix?
always fixable. Look, to start with, we have a very good Minister of Health. I've met Shane Reti. He's Maori, but he's a New Zealander. He wants a health system for New Zealand. Yes, we've got to help disadvantaged people, poor people, whatever the skin colour, whatever the racial background. Poor people have to be helped, but rich people have got to pay. So he's got a tough job. The real issue that I see, being old school, is the massive bureaucracy that's been created. See, when I was trained at Palmerston Hospital as a medical registrar and at Lower Hutt, we didn't even know what a manager was. There were ward clerks. You didn't need security because if anyone came in and caused trouble, the cops dragged them away, and they never did it again. And everyone loved it. We did our best, and the wait in A&E was bugger all. But now there's this massive bureaucracy of tiers and tiers of bureaucrats changing reports and stuff. So, how you break down that bureaucracy is really hard to know.
Because it's not just in the medical system. I mean,
Absolutely.
It's right through our life now, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it's wrong. It's wrong. It's holding up building, it's holding up exploration for minerals and oil, and it's urgent. There's an urgency comes on. And so if I was the Minister of Health, I would, like Shane Reti is, I would be, number one is making it equal for all people, all New Zealanders. Get rid of this racism that came in. It was very difficult as a frontline GP prescribing racially.
What do you mean by that?
For example, someone rings up desperate for COVID vaccine medication, 63, they're Caucasian, so they can't get it. If you're Maori or Pacifica, the limit's 55, they would have got it.
Okay, so you mean racial in favour of Māori people?
That's right. I don't care whether yellow, green, whatever. I just want all Kiwis to be fighting in the same trench.
And so that's a common thing throughout the
Well, it was going to get worse, and
industry.
it was developing, and it was going to get worse. But Shane's got rid of the Maori Authority, which I love. And look, in our medical centre, I have a 60-pound Panamu stone and the Kamatua up there, and our own practice patu. There's not many of them. We love and uphold our iwi and marae, but we're all equal. Rich ones pay, poor ones we help. But to answer your question, it's somehow cutting down that bureaucracy that costs so much to run.
And that's just saying, does this bureaucracy achieve anything? Because if it's not making things any better, we should just ditch it.
Well, I've seen a medical centre without a medical system without it. We did fine, but it costs a bloody fortune. Many of them are on $500,000 a year. You know, so no. Look, just give it to the doctors and nurses, mate.
In the Flying Doctor, at the end of the intro, I think you had just taken off out of Te Anau, and you said you were living the dream.
Absolutely.
So if we fast forward 20, 30 years, I'm not sure how many it is, are you still living the dream now?
Absolutely, yeah. Every day I get up and I've got my little bush synagogue out the back. I give thanks for the fact that nothing hurts. I could do a couple of rounds in the ring, I reckon. I should have 10 people at Stag last week. I've got the most awesome soulmate, so many friends. Christmas is embarrassing. And 2 jobs, 3 jobs now that I feel I just don't know how you'd retire because they're so cool. But it's hard work. It's not a constant state of bloody orgasm or anything. It's hard work. It's the moments. Breaking through the cloud and seeing the moon, you know, and knowing in 2 hours I'll be at Hokitika or in Fernside Fields to see the Grandies, or, you know, having whitebait fritters with bloody Dick Deaker down in Te Anau, or seeing the patients at Bulls. They're great people, eh? So absolutely. Absolutely. So fingers crossed I can keep it going. And when it's lights out for me, I just want it to be lights out. So fingers crossed. But you've just got to go with the deal that you dealt with, the cards. So no. Main thing is to be true to yourself and just surround yourself by good, positive people. Wankers, see you around.
Well, thanks, Dave. I really appreciate your time here today.
So I don't have to kiss you or anything, do I?
Oh, we'll do that off camera, eh? But I mean, your positivity and your outlook on life and your cheerfulness, it really does rub off.
Yeah, but see, I'm not the only one. There's a concept. It's actually spoken about in the Hebrew Bible called the Ruach, the Ruach Elohim, and everyone who's positive and goes with it is surrounded by that. And you see them in the waiting room. They're all looking miserable, and in comes someone like Bones or someone, and everyone is lifted by it, you know. And so the idea is everyone in the world surrounds himself with Ruach.
Yeah, it rubs off.
It rubs off. It rubs off. Yeah. Hey, morning, Craig. How you doing? I'm probably not like most of the population. I work 7 days a week, 14 to 16 hours a day, but every day I start at 4 in the morning. I go to bed about 8, and I start my day with a period of focus in my bush synagogue. Part of the deal was, and I took it from a lot of the synagogues, churches, religious places overseas, I get in the mindset with candlelight. It's just, there's something about candlelight. So come on down anyway, Craig, and we'll have a look here, right? And you just go around, and what tends to happen is the place starts to light up, and I think, shit, that could be me inside. It's 4 o'clock in the bloody morning. It's awesome. This one here's got to be a tough one, because I got this again actually in Athens. It's one of those ones with a bit of an icon on it. Not that I'm really into those, but I do like that one. about light, especially natural light. There's one scripture somewhere that says that we come from the light, we're children of the light. Well, I don't know how that is, but I do love the light. And as this place lightens up, I don't know, you just feel this sort of buzz, you know. Even better if there's a bit of rain on the roof. So I started to collect all sorts of stuff in here too. So, like for example, my favourite tramping books, different plants from down south, a lot of stuff here, like this is from Rome, where the Essenes were in 2,000 years ago, and just out of Jerusalem. There's no rush. Just the longer it takes, it seems the better, you know. I'm always like this painting here. That's a dinghy or boat in a lake. That no oars, no rudder, no sail. It's just destiny taking you somewhere. And I love that painting because it was done by a guy called Gordy Kane down in Tiano, and he could never really afford medical, so he used to give me a painting, you know. And I've got some real masterpieces actually. And here's a lot of those bush people like Gordy were very deep thinking people, you know. I find it a great way to start the day, because I don't look at the cell phone, I don't look at nothing, just coming into you first, devoid of sort of bullshit that the civilized world's given us. I just bloody think of nothing else but things beyond the material world in my own funny way, you know. And everyone's got funny ways. Especially a guy called Craig Anderson I met once down in Redham. I've got a routine of 7 incense sticks, and then like that. And especially my favourite one's white sage. Bloody awesome. It's made in India somewhere. But again, it just gets you into that sort of mindset. Because if you're going to get into sort of meditation and stuff, you don't just suddenly bloody sit out in semi-lotus wearing nappies and stuff. I have a combination here of, I get down south, I get given by the farmers, a lot of good people, and up north, awesome honey. And there's something about honey that fires up all the senses, I reckon. So when you have some, and just close your eyes, the best word to say for it is, fuck, that's good. Anyway, that's how I start my routine. It's pretty cool. Oh, g'day, Craig. How you doing?
Not too bad.
Hey, welcome to the Bulls Flying Doctor Service, and I'll just show you around, eh?
Sounds
But
great.
we just go back a bit. I just want to show you, to start with, what officially it's called. It's called the Mark Baldwin Aerospace Research Centre, in honour of Mark, who unfortunately died here about 12 years ago. Everything in here is in honour of the pilots, Mark. There he is there. That's my favourite place in the South Island. In the Southern Alps, it's the Clark, and that's Mount Hooker. So come on through and I'll show you around, eh? So we'll start at the front, eh? Because it's quite cool out here. Because It's actually the significance of showing you all the front is that this is my Hunter Pilot Mirai. So you'll see there's not many hangars or AvMed centres with a mahi. That there came from the Rangatike. It's Totara. It was made specifically for here. And that's Kawhaiwhai, which is the Kawakawa leaves, which is healing leaves for medicine and stuff. So everything in here has been blessed, and it's our Hunter Pilot Mirai. So come on through, eh? So, you know, the obvious thing is it stores the aircraft that I use for the Bulls Flying Doctor Service, which is an awesome little 172 big donkey set up for the bush, and it does full IFR. So I've had it 25 years, and it's just a wonderful business tool. Absolutely. It's full of models. They're all lit cabinets. Most of them are made by a master modeler called Hasita, and there's real special stuff amongst them. Like, for example, and it gets dropped off all the time by pilots. If you take, for example, here, this is a cylinder head from a DC-3, and the DC-3 crashed in West Papua just after World War II. Everyone was killed on board except for a nurse who was able, a couple of hours before she died, to just scratch what happened. And one of the pilots thought, Dave needs something of that in the hangar. So Jeff Keatley brought me this cylinder head back from West Papua. It's pretty cool, eh?
It's amazing.
Yeah, awesome. And look, just model cabinets, every model significant in some way. This Mirage tail fin, that came from the 75 Squadron crew room. There's a real tale to this, but in the end, when New Zealand gets fighter jets back, the boys and girls who are flying them are going to get this back in their crew room. I'm the minder of the Mirage tail fin. There's a lot of garb here which just isn't for show. This full jet setup is also used for education, because I lecture Massey students on aviation medicine here, and a few other pilots as well. So actually having the gear on board is very useful. We've got a awesome filing system. The paper files, this is where Yvette and Rosemary work. And in here we've got, and I'm very proud of this actually, a full police search and rescue centre with all their radios and stuff, Starlink, because what it was shown in Cyclone Gabrielle was that the comms went down with the internet. Well, we're all backed up here, so if it ever happens in the Manawatu, the Bulls Flying Doctor Service will become the centre, and it'll do a good job. Wherever you look on the walls, there's special stuff, and paying homage to people that I've dealt to in the past. Peter Robb, we've got Panamu everywhere that celebrates books that I've written or whatever. In here's my consulting room, and this is where I do aviation medicals. A little bit of general practice, but generally that's associated with Bulls Medical Centre. So this here's the standard glove that we use. Look, 4 fingers.
Hang on, I'm staying clear.
It's all very legit. We promise we use gloves here. But again, everything's covered in special stuff. There's nothing up here that doesn't have meaning. This here is my pukeko stew recipe. I haven't cooked for 46 years. I'm blessed with a soulmate, Sandy. But I thought I would branch into cooking. And I'm starting a cookbook. And this is my first recipe, pukeko stew. What you do is you bring the water to boil and you add all the seasoning. You put the pukeko in whole, okay? That's the trick to it, the whole. And then you put the boot on the pukeko and the rock on the boot. And then you boil it for 6 hours. You drain it and then you eat the boot.
Sounds delicious.
I'm going to make a big success with that recipe. We've got a beautiful AV system here because I do a lot of talks to different groups there. So we've got an awesome system with great sound, awesome smoko room with plenty of venison in there. Over here is our Shrine to Lost Pilots. This is where really the spirituality of this outfit comes into play. 12 years ago, our awesome son, Mark, unfortunately took his life upstairs, but we've rebuilt and we celebrate him. And we also celebrate in the Shrine to Lost Pilots so many of the special people that we've been involved with, like, you know, George Anderson, the Wallace Boys, Perry Wihi, and all that. It all actually started when, soon after Mark died, I shot the chamois just under Mount Tutoku, and a week later, an awesome pilot, Bruce Andrews, was killed in that Hughes 500E. So I thought, look, it's time we celebrate everyone. So we got this fully taxidermied. The Wallace family paid for this taxidermy, which I greatly appreciate. And then down the track, I matched it up with a tar. And in here is all sorts of memorabilia, but particularly celebrating the names. And people come in here and just have a whiskey and just have a think and remember these people, you know. So it's great. And over here we have all our tool shed and hunting gear. And here we've got our Banderanti on stilts. It's done up like Austin Powers. The original idea was to set this up for hypoxia courses to make it sort of realistic. But what I realised was if someone collapsed or started fitting, there's no room to resuscitate them. So we use it for storage from all my books. And this here's my throne. You know, like, you know, I've got to have a throne, don't I? Like,
especially leopard skin.
So, you know, you can sit here and have a little think. You know, there's a lot of peace here. But it's become quite a special little joint, actually. Children in particular just love the bloody place. So it's awesome.
How much time do you spend down here?
Oh, forever. No, it's real cool. Really cool. You know, I'll take you out the back here too, Craig. I'll just pass you if that's all right. Just here. Here's out here I've got me a storage room. Here I've got a chiller, because the only meat that Sandy and I eat, red meat, is venison. And, you know, bring some legs back from down south, put it in there for a week, and then chop it up and process it. We just had this is just cleaning up the gear from last time. And then if you come around this way, here, this again is my storage room. And it's actually in disguise. People might think it's a men's and women's toilet. That's my little plan to keep burglars away. Because if someone burgled that and he went to prison, the boys would say, what were you stealing, man? It sounds pretty cool. He says, I was stealing stuff in a toilet. He's not going to do very well in prison, is he? But as you can see, this is all done up as Austin Powers, bloody gold member. But look, when we got offered the complete wreck with wings, a whole lot, I made the decision that, look, it's got to look good. So the paint job was $13,000, and the whole thing ended up with $30,000, setting it all up. But look, it's an iconic bit, and if kids come here with pilots, they spend all day. In fact, you can't pull them out of it. They love it. They love that sort of stuff. What's your weight?
82.
Cool, mate. Do you wear glasses? I can't remember.
Not on a good day.
No, but you don't have lookovers.
No.
No glasses. Cool. No new tattoos?
Nothing that I'm aware of.
Not even on your willy?
No.
Just read the lowest you can.
Okay. C-D-A-R-H-O-F-P.
Smarty bum. Yeah, and the other eye? That's excellent.
T-F-G-H-R-A-D-C.
Yeah, both eyes together.
It's T-F-O-H-R-A-D-C.
It's Skywalk, mate. Awesome.
Better than this one.
It's bloody good, mate. Oh, generally, it's not. Most people struggle with the second or third one. Both eyes together. Which one can you read?
N4.
What? You can see my hands moving there, up there, and follow my finger. Oh, it's a busy little finger, that one.
Yeah, I'm sure it does.
Oh, I'd be lost without it. You just keep looking straight ahead for a second. I love this because I've been a doc 46 or science and doctoring for 46 years, and I'm just fascinated by the human body. You know, it's just like the Terminator robot, dude. Incredible. Perfect blood pressure. Wow. Just stand up for a second. Cool. You wearing a bra?
Not today.
Big breath here. And out. It's the chopper pilots who wear the bras. I was very fortunate. The powers that be 20 years ago gave Mark and I the best spot in the airport. We've got fuel, amazing view of the airport. We can turn the lights on and take off at 4 in the morning. And even out here, there's special stuff. This represents the South Island, and every one of these rocks comes from the rivers in order. So on the east coast, we start with the Awatere, and then we go all the way, Clarence, all the way around to way down the bottom of, I think we go as far as the Rangitata. Over here is the west coast, and so we end up, you know, way down there at the Yarrawatta, but, you know, there's the Buller River and the whole lot. So this represents the South Island, and again, all that stuff is special, you know what I mean? And that's what makes the Bulls Flying Doctor Service special. Everyone here is special, and, you know, I'll be working till I drop, and the more people that come here, the more it lifts it. So thanks very much.